Okay, we are good to go.
All right, great, fantastic. It is 6 o'clock. It is not 6 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock. And welcome everybody to this evening's City of Middleton Airport Commission meeting. And we'll start it off with roll call, Brian.
Okay, Commissioner Nye. Okay, yeah, see you on the screen here. Commissioner Randall.
Present.
Okay, Commissioner Schwartz.
I'm here.
Commissioner Myers.
Present.
Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Chair Lorman.
Sure.
Okay, we have quorum.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Proof of posting.
Yes, the agenda was properly posted at City Hall on the Airport Commission listserv and at the airport.
Okay. All righty. Public comment. And public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. If you would like to be identified, raise your hand. And I see Matt Holfeld is here, but he'll be addressing us and speaking to item number 2.
I don't see anybody that has their virtual hand raised for open session at the moment.
Okay. I do have a statement from the mayor concerning an agenda item. Should I hold it for that agenda item or read it now? Oh, you're muted, Brian.
Maybe wait till we get to that agenda item.
Okay, will do. Make myself a note. Charles, I think you were copied, so just remind each other.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right, well, then we have no public comment. Approval of minutes. I've reviewed the minutes, and I just wanted to make a comment regarding the minutes. I think I think the minutes are clear, but regarding item number 2, there were some follow-up questions to myself and the city, and basically what it was is item number 2 of the previous meeting was the review and discussion of action for the 5-year option to extend the FBO agreement, and there was broken down into 2 motions. And I was asked if the second motion constitutes an automatic renewal of the FBO upon expiration of the 5-year extension in the first motion. And in looking at that, and my interpretation of that is that just is not the case. So when the FBO agreement expires, this is assuming the Common Council, of course, approves the extension. But then when the FBO agreement expires, it expires. And at that time, like any and all agreements, the city simply starts over with whoever the city is going to work with at that point in time in the future. So I think I articulated that properly, Brian. So based on that, I accept the minutes as they were submitted unless anybody else has any comments. All right. Chair report. Brian, if you want to give an update, if there is any update to provide on the ALP, it'd be nice just to keep everybody in the loop.
Yes, it's similar to what I mentioned at the last meeting. We have the ALP submitted through the BOA system to the FAA. They were in process of reviewing that, and we were hoping to get a final determination from them prior to the end of September. Obviously, the federal shutdown has impacted that amongst other things that the FAA is reviewing. So that is in a holding pattern until such time that the government is back open and the FAA is fully staffed. So as soon as I get word from our contacts at the Chicago office, the FAA on the status of our ALP review, I will let this body know.
Okay, great. Thank you. So with the ALP on the mind, I did see a presentation that was presented at the recent Wisconsin Airport Managers Association conference, and the BOA did a nice presentation on just what the ALP process is. If anybody's interested in that, just let me know. I will send you the link. You can read it. It's okay. Oh, I just would like to acknowledge that Maury Inc. had its 100-year celebration this month, and congratulations for 100 years. Also, just passing on some information. We're in the middle of a budget deliberation with the city, and at this point in time, the city didn't get a grant that we applied for the B-cycle service, and that encompassed our last discussion to look at an e-bike arrangement at the airport, hoping to maybe work something in with that. So that's just not on this year's budget. It certainly doesn't mean that we as a body can't discuss the feasibility of e-bike or e-bike service at the airport on our own for a future agenda item. So if there is any continued desire to explore that, just let me know and we'll get it on a future agenda. And I think that covers what I have to update everybody with tonight. We can move on to the manager's report.
Can everyone hear me?
Sounds good.
Very good. From September 30 to October 29, 2025, 6 individuals made 47 noise or overflight reports. Reports are received via phone or online. 1 individual made 35 reports, 1 5 and 1 4. No violations of FAA regulations were apparent in these reports. The aircraft reported appeared to be following the voluntary noise abatement procedure consistent with safety and were pattern altitude during the overflights and or on an instrument approach. I have, as an addendum, I have spoken recently with the flight school manager at Wisconsin Aviation, and we reviewed, and he assures me that they're doing their best to follow the procedure, and especially when landing to the east, to turn their base leg east of the area that's most noise sensitive. No aircraft accidents or incidents on the field. Mowing season continues, but it is coming to an end. And events held at the Maury Conference Room, the VMC Club, October 9, Willow Brown Academy. We flew 8 young people, volunteers, October 16. Garden Club meets there every month. October 21, they were there. Jörg Grossenbacher from the FAA Flight Service Standards Office presented a safety seminar October 23rd to about 20 people. EA Chapter 93 held a Young Eagles rally October 25. Again, about 25 young people participated with the flights. And in our maintenance hangar, October 25, the company did host a centennial celebration. The Maury family giving flight instruction in the Madison area. It's a private event, included dinner and a hangar dance. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 180 folks attended. I did attend the Wisconsin Aviation Management Association conference in La Crosse this year. Several very useful sessions, and I am now on the board of directors of WAMA. And the Friends of Charlie 29 held a social event and presentation on flying to Alaska. It was October 23rd. About 50 people attended. In the future, we're going to have another Willa Brown event, the Volunteer Appreciation. It's going to be in the hangar, actually, November 8th. The MC Club is going to be here again November 13, and the Garden Club is November 18, kind of winding down on the safety seminars until the next year.
Thank you very much, Rich. Congratulations on getting on the board. Don't know if that means there's more work for you or not, but either way,
Yes, there is. Thank you.
yeah, that's a nice recognition. So fantastic. Just passing along as part of your report period. This has just been coming up regularly within a city discussion with all departments and groups. The city has a sustainability purchasing, call it practice, in place right now, and I think just use your best judgment. Keep in mind, work directly with Brian when making purchases that involve the airport,
Mhm.
large or small. I just think in that space, and I know you do. Um, but I'm just going to pass that on. We did at our at our recent budget deliberations. Um, Counselors were kind of going through things line item by line item, and in some of the areas they're like we were talking about, making requests for electric lawnmowers and various types of equipment. So I just think it'll be part of our landscape. Um, and but there also requests were made where we realized the technology isn't there to support uh, electric options for some equipment that the city was looking for in terms of city maintenance and things like that. So it's an evolving technology, and we'll just do our best to keep an eye on it. So,
Very good.
yeah, and if you ever learn anything, come across articles or tidbits or news, pass it our way, and then I'll share it with the commission. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I see our Commissioner Randall has a hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Rich, actually I have a question for you. It might tie in with what I guess David just talked about. What are the plans or what are we doing with the brush in the North Fork of the creek, maybe potentially before next spring's growing season? Do you have plans for that or?
Well, again, we are, as we have done in the past, we're going to lease the articulating arm brush mower and get when we can dedicate a full week to 10 days and try to get in there and mow as much as we can. Also, I have been doing a little bit of work as well as some others, just walking the fence and taking down the willows and whatever else that are growing through the fence at the moment. The waterway is a little bit, well, certainly special. It was, as it was, they admitted, the designers, it is not designed to be easily maintainable or maintainable at all. So it does present some challenges, but what we found most cost effective is when we can get when the soil is good and solid, we can get that articulating arm mower, renting it, getting it here. We can take care of a great deal of brush in that week to 10-day period. So it's on our list of things to do on top of everything else.
Yeah. And I think so I have a request to potentially look back into the goat grazing as along with like sustainability part of researching of other options because we did this what I think it'll be 5 years ago and it was such an awesome successful project combining the goat grazing with fire and the mechanical and the human being removal and I still have people commenting or asking me when are the goats coming back to the airport and so I don't know if you could look into that and like as part of the whole sustainability thing of how we may be able to do that before another growing season kicks in because this I think it'll be what 5 years of accumulation in that difficult. I certainly recognize the difficulty in getting into that area and it seems like the combined approach would be great. So I don't know if you'd be as a request, I guess, to look into that and see if that's a possibility before it. I don't know whether does affect what we're trying to do then and what you're trying to do now, but weather does not affect the ladies. They will eat rain or shine. Anyway, thanks for considering the request.
We'll consider it.
Yeah, I think as I recall when we got into that the first time, use your discretion, do research, whatever you learn, you learn. if something comes our way that looks certainly viable, I guess treat it like anything else, get a quote from them and a scope of work. We hold them to it and we make a presentation back to this body when the time's appropriate.
Very good.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other thoughts, inputs, or questions along those lines? Maintenance pretty exciting out there. Either shovel snow or you remove stuff that grows. All right, I don't have any other comments. Okay, we'll move on to discussion and action items. And we're just picking up where we left off, and that'll be the review, discussion, and potential action on a request for proposal for airport manager service contract. Just a reminder that the commission, this is a draft of a future state and not a current review or critique of what the current manager is doing. We're discussing how we want a document to look in the future. And Brian immediately highlighted on there, I think a priority we need to at least get through tonight. We should determine the duration of the agreement, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And get some input from Brian on that, where if he has any thoughts. So we can start there.
Yeah, I don't have any particular guidance for the commission on the time frame. That's just a question I wanted to note is, there's a couple of different questions that are out there for the commission to consider tonight. One, do you even want to go down the path of an RFP for the process, and how you answer that question, yes or no, can dictate next steps. If you choose to go down the path of utilizing an RFP, and then the second question is, when would you want to do that? I mean, you want to use it for this current cycle that'll come up for starting in 2027 through 2031, or hold off on the RFP to a later date in the future and extend a current contract. Depending on how you answer that question, then we get to the RFP document itself in terms of how you would want to structure that RFP and what length the commission would want to recommend to the Common Council for that length of a contract that you would award through RFP. I don't have any good guidance for you on what other airports across the state are doing. I did get some information from the BOA in terms of kind of current airports that have different contracts for services, and that's in the packet materials. But beyond that, I was just looking for guidance from the commission in terms of what figure you'd like me to plug in for the potential term of the contract if we were to utilize an RFP process.
Okay. Commissioner Randall, please start.
Brian, it's more like a technical question on in general on RFPs, service contracts for the city of Middleton. What is considered a good lead time to announce a request for proposal, prior to a date, whether we end up deciding it's 2027 or 5 years later or whatever? What is a responsible amount of time to give people to respond?
Yeah, fair question. More time is always, I think, preferred for people who would want to respond to the RFP to have time to kind of figure out if it would be in their best interest to submit for an RFP. That being said, it really depends on the RFP that's being put out. For other RFPs that are kind of more shorter, one-off services that the city does, that time frame might be much more compressed to, I say, a couple of months. Whereas in the case of this situation, with management services, you'd want to give as much time as possible. I think somewhere in that 6 months to a year time frame. The closer you can lean towards the year, I think the better. Just for all parties involved to have as most time to make some decisions. Even after you have the RFP open and however long it's open for people to respond, and whatever time it takes for the commission and city council to make a final determination on a respondent that would be awarded for contract, there you would want to still have some lead time for whomever that new or existing vendor is to know that decision's been made. So yeah, I'd say 6 months is at the bare, that I wouldn't go any less than that, and I would hesitate towards or recommend moving towards more time than 6 months as possible, as close to a year as is feasible, given the process that we'd have to go through if you're going to do an RFP.
All right, thanks. That kind of helps, like maybe in our decision about whether we make a decision for this upcoming one or not, because we would be coming up on roughly around a year for the next airport manager's contract renewal, right? It ends 2026, beginning January 1st. So just for us to be responsible that that's about a year away. I guess while I have the floor, I was just thinking about what you said, the length of the contract. And I think of this. I mean, first of all, the first thing I want to say is in looking at the airport manager's contract, more detail, because this has been on the table. Like it's really impressed on me about how valuable this role is, for the city and the liaison aspect of it, for what's happening on the airport side, the infrastructure side, the city operations side, the community benefit, whether it's, business or just really benefit to the city. Like, I really feel that this is just really a valuable contract. And I'm also thinking of, contract terms as we think about the length, that I can see where if it's too short, if we shorten it from the 5 years it is now, I don't know that that does service to really being able to, with all of the work services that are in here that I think are incredibly valuable, that I think we could actually, as a commission, maybe make a focus on clarifying some of these work services. So it makes it easier for the airport manager to know, okay, this is valuable stuff to report on, so that our community really knows the importance of the airport in ways that we can work to help with, I don't know, promotion, and help the airport manager by, maybe there's different reporting, maybe there's different communication, maybe we work with um, the director of communications for the city of Middleton. I see that, like, if even I, on the airport commission, someone who's at the airport, didn't really get the scope of the power of this, imagine the community, who some people don't care about the airport, or people who are faced with reading material that is perhaps contains, if I may say so, disinformation or misinformation, like countering that to really educate the community. I just really, my opinion is, I don't think it should be shorter than the 5 years. And I think that that's actually a good length of time, given there's so many changes and so many things occurring in the field of aviation, like separate from an FBO contract or a SASO contract. I think it seems like it's a good length of time. I mean, I'm open to hear what the commission has to say, or the current airport manager, but I'm looking ahead at changes in aviation in general, electric aviation, fuel, other developments, regulation changes. It just seems to me like, I'll put out there that I think the 5 years is a good length of contract. Anyway, that's all I need to say.
Yeah, thank you for your input. Commissioners, any other thoughts on
Yes,
duration?
I'll second that. I think I'd been going through the material as well, and just thinking about I think Carr made some great points about changes within the industry, and even just thinking about um, terms that you want to lock into and be able to remain flexible as the town of Middleton. And I think 5 years does seem like a solid term for that, so that it's enough time to be able to maintain a solid relationship, and work together between the commission, the town, um, uh, and the airport manager. And then it also allows flexibility on both sides, depending on anything that may come up. So those are just some of my thoughts.
Sure, thanks. We are the city of Middleton, by the way. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Uh,
Yes, City of Middleton. I spoke.
I saw Brian. I thought I saw Brian wince.
Been a long
Okay,
day. Sorry about that.
that's all right. That's That's right. Brian was, just taking his notes now. Sudden, what? Okay. Commissioner Young.
Mm.
Yeah, you're off mute.
Yep, I agree with the prior comments. I guess a couple comments and a question. I agree with the prior, Karen Lindsay. Um, 5 is a good number, I think, for the duration. And I guess my question is, in RFP responses, there's going to be some fact finding and question and answer from respondents. How is this administered? Who is that? Who are the responders? How's the RFP process administered?
Sure. So typical RFP processes for the city, we would put out the RFP through our various channels, and through other, aviation channels in the state of Wisconsin. Uh, the, the firms or individuals would have a set period of time to respond to the RFP. We would get those submissions. Those submissions would come back to the commission for you to review and determine whether or not you felt that individual respondents to the RFP met the qualifications that are desired for that contract, and make a recommendation to the Common Council on which respondent you would prefer to have be awarded the contract. And then that ultimately go to the City Council, and the City Council would vote. They would review the recommendation of the airport commission and make a determination on which individual or firm to award the contract to.
So it's a city employee that responds to questions from a potential participant about what are the current amenities at the airport, what are the current issues going on in the facility or in the municipality?
Yeah, likely I would serve as kind of the initial first point of contact for any questions. I would do my best to kind of field those questions or ask for resources to answer those questions. But typically with an RFP process, if you get one question from one respondent, you kind of compile all the questions and send those answers back out to any respondent so that everyone has the same information. So for example, if there was 4 respondents and respondent A had a question about something, you would compile that question and send that answer back out to all 4, so everyone knew what the question was and knew what the responses were. And depending on the volume of questions that you get, you might send that update out once during the recruitment cycle, maybe multiple times, depending on the volume of questions you get.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or just comments to the body? Okay, Rich.
There we go. Well, the question that I have you brought up earlier that hasn't been addressed is, do we even go forward with a request for proposals? And the question again, at the last meeting, it seemed that the point of doing the proposal was figuring out what the cost would be to hire someone to do this job, as opposed to what we're doing, which is a pass-through of our expenses. Now, that could be, you can determine that just by doing some research, talking to various municipalities, what they're paying their airport managers, what the scope and whatever else is. So the question is, if that is the reason why we're looking at this, we can easily do that without putting out this program. Maury Airplane Company is more than willing to continue with our contract. We also have a pretty fair idea that no one else will be able to do this for the cost that the city is paying at the moment for us to manage the airport. So that's the question I have. Certainly, I could put a proposal together that will basically be exactly what we're doing right now. And is it worth the city's time to put the RFP out there just to find out that, okay, yeah, no one else is going to be willing to do that?
Sure. I mean, I'm willing to. I think I can answer your question from let's just call it the political side of the process.
Mhm.
Because the city that's how this came about. Okay, the request for RFP. And to my knowledge, thus far, only one person, one business, that's Capital Flight, has approached the city and us to request that we review this as an RFP process. So that's why it's obviously sitting here, right? Someone asked us to review something, do something publicly, so it's here in front of the commission. So, I mean, so moving forward, okay, if we, and I'm just thinking again, as a politician, here you are, okay, let's say we have an RFP process and we put it out there and it goes out for public review and bid. That's the whole idea, is you let the chips fall where they fall without us trying to prejudge it or judge it or make any assumptions in any way whatsoever. I mean, I think there's enough data and enough history to understand the fact that the money that we're paying the airport manager right now is clearly just covering services that are being done out there.
Hmm.
So this is an exercise, as I really see it, more than anything at this point. Dave?
Sure. Couple of comments I think are somewhat consistent with what we're talking about. I'd actually noticed that paragraph 8 of the RFP proposal, it is the compensation section. And it says, and it says the city will pay at the rate stipend mutually agreed upon by the city and the selected airport manager for the services rendered as described in the potential contract. If we do an RFP, I would suggest that we have a sentence prior to that says any person submitting an RFP must include what they believe to be a reasonable compensation for the services they're submitting an RFP for. Otherwise, we could get a bunch of RFPs and with no mention of what the compensation is going to be. And we then, under this process and what the agreement itself calls for, we could select one of these RFPs and then enter the negotiating process of what it's going to cost. It seems we should air that out before we get to that. That's number one. Number two, on this concept of should we or should we not be doing an RFP, to me, it's somewhat of a, and again, there may be something, and as you've said, Dave, the political aspect or something within the concept of the of city government that I'm not familiar with. But if it's not broken, don't fix it. So in other words, what do we expect from any RFP that isn't being accomplished by the current manager? And if there is something that we should expect that isn't being accomplished, I think that should be vetted by us. And if there isn't anything that needs to be fixed, then again, I think we're spending a lot of time and potentially opening up a can of worms to get an unknown source in there to do something that's no different than what's being effectively done now. I'm not making a judgment on whether it is or isn't being effectively done. I have my own opinions on that, but I'm just saying that's something that should be vetted if we're deciding whether we even need an RFP.
Yeah, and to our Commissioner Schwartz's comment, that was one of the things that brought me to bring it to where we are right now in just my overview of the city, is that okay, the city has all kinds of agreements with all kinds of vendors and services constantly. So are we going to have consistency across the board as a city? So anytime the city's going to engage in any kind of agreement with anybody in any way whatsoever for a paid service, is that going to go out as an RFP? So are we singling the airport out as opposed to we hire engineering firms to do dozens and dozens of things throughout the city over the year? We have local landscape companies that do take on some of the mowing and snow removal operations. So Are we setting a precedence here to simply acknowledge and appease Capital Flight's request, and or and is that where it starts and ends? And that's why I leave it to this body to come to that decision. Cara, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a reasonable request to ask for a request for proposal, for this position, especially because of how valuable I see that it is. My question is more about the timing of it. And looking at the contract and I take like really some of the things that Rich said, some really good points there, and David, regarding performance and things like that. I look at some of these things in here and I don't, unless there's another document that shows like specific objectives that actually the airport manager could be
Nope.
evaluated on. It seems to me that, yeah, it seems to me that really what the commission and the city, or maybe it's not the commission, or maybe it's the city, it seems like the airport manager's contract needs some work, and really to have it set up so that in the future, where I think it would be beneficial to have a request for proposal, that there are performance criteria that, currently, like if we decide to not do an RFP right now and extend it to the current airport manager, to Rich, that in the coming year, or even, well, frankly, maybe working together in the coming years, so that the airport manager's contract that we then start on January 1st of 2027 has these specific things in there that tie into some of the things that I see are missing, like, where there's a lack of awareness in the community. Maybe they're out of some of these work services, they fall in that area, but Rich would need specific objectives of which he could see that would be measurables, so there would be an opportunity for him to actually demonstrate what's occurring behind the scenes that we may not have access to or understand or know, and some of the areas that we may be able to just have there be more awareness about the benefit of the airport in general in the broader community. So a lot of words there, but I think I'm leaning towards, yes, I'd like to see a request for proposal, but not this cycle. I'd rather see us focus on sussing this document and the request for proposal out for a future cycle, and then potentially look at just extending the 5-year contract to him now, with the opportunity for all of us to really gear us towards the future, gear us towards, at some point there will be a transition. And if we're starting now to look at setting this up for a quality contract that any airport manager can then step into in a way that best serves the city, I think we need more time to do that. That's just my sense right now.
Sure. Just one point of clarification, with or without an RFP. When the airport manager agreement expires, it expires. And at that time, again, it is within the city's decision-making power who they want to renew it with. So the city says, hey, Rich, your agreement expires. Do you want to reapply? Well, if there's someone else standing in line behind Rich, the city is obligated to look at that as well. And the city can make a decision and ultimately at some point forward something to like this commission and say, hey, guess what? We have more than one person who's actually interested in being the airport manager. So just kind of keep that thought in mind.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And then I guess that actually strengthens my position about perhaps our role to work in this coming year with Rich about the airport manager contract and performance measures, things we'd like to see. So it becomes clear if there's other people standing in line at the time, we would have a track record that has maybe shifted, or at least something that we can see that's measurable in this next year, in order to help make that determination or recommendation.
Sure. What happens right now is city staff look at vendors and services for things they need, that the city needs, right? And they simply contact a few of them and say, hey, here's what we need. And they check with each vendor or service, and that vendor service responds to the city. And city staff look at it and they say, we think this is the best option. And they bring it to the appropriate committee, commission, and ultimately the council to approve at some point. So, the only difference between what the city's doing right now and what this RFP process would do is it would say to city staff, we're taking that power away from you. The manager agreement has to simply just go out to the public, and city staff don't get to be the people looking at this process. It's going to be a public process, and it's going to be brought back to a body to vote on, as opposed to the city staff looking at it and saying, hey, we've looked at all the candidates, and this is the process we went through, and this is the one we are recommending to you, the commission. And the commission typically, in most cases, says, yep, fine. And it moves on to the common council. I'm saying, Alder Myers has his hand up, and I think he'll be able to shed a lot of light on that because he's on public works. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, so for Public Works, the reason why the staff recommendations are followed as rigorously as they are is largely because the staff only recommend the bids that they are legally allowed to recommend. For Public Works projects in Wisconsin, we are required to accept the lowest qualified bid that conforms to the project. So that's why that gets followed as closely as it does. And the reason it would not be followed is because, in the opinion of the Public Works Committee, it was not a responsive bid from a qualified bidder. That's why the staff recommendations are the way they are on that committee, Dave. With that said,
but not for a lot of other services the city engages in. I get it for big projects, but the city engages with consulting and engineering firms all the time, and very often we've taken higher priced vendors, for example, on other things.
Well, I think that's part of the difference
Yeah.
between I think what Alder Myers is suggesting, which is public works construction-based processes have a different set of state laws that have to be followed, whereas
Mhm.
professional services contracts are a bit more open-ended in terms of the criteria that the governing body can utilize to make their decision. So cost is not necessarily the only driving factor for a professional services contract. And the way that we typically do things, and it really depends on the project or service that you're talking about. So as Alder Meyer suggested, when it's clearly falls in the category of construction related, there's a state specified process, bid opening, all that stuff that we have to
Mhm.
follow, which is different than public services, professional services, which could be you get quotes from 3 to 5 vendors that are in that space, and you review those cost estimates and provide a recommendation to the committee and the council for that. The other alternative is an RFP process, which is a bit more rigorous is the wrong word, but there is more information that is required of a potential applicant to provide. And typically, though, we do RFP processes for larger ticket type of services. So when it's a smaller, one-off small thing, we might do a cost, ask for cost quotes from different vendors and provide that to the committee and council for the review. If it's a bigger ticket item, then we might pursue an RFP process. But again, it really depends on the specifics of the service that we're looking to get. And there is no hard and fast rule for it, either legally or in policy document. You could pull communities across the state of Wisconsin, and all communities, will handle professional service contracts slightly differently. That just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And you explained it exactly how I wanted this body to understand that process. And this is now my opinion. The way I see the airport manager's agreement is for professional service. Charles.
Yeah, sorry, I had my hand raised for a different reason when
Oh,
you called on me. Uh, so I
okay, no problem.
I just wanted to say that in the event that the body does decide to punt on the RFP for one reason or another, I want us to do so with a clear timeline for having one of these together that we do feel comfortable circulating for this contract. Um, so that what we don't have happen is 2 years before the next renewal, we all get together and we have the same conversation we've had for the past couple months around this project. So if we're going to not do the RFP this time, I want us to commit to specific time bound deadlines for when we feel different aspects of this should be complete and ready, so that when we take a look at it in 2031, I think would be 5 years from 2026, we have something that's ready to go as a body.
Let's see. First, I saw Jack, and then David. Go ahead, Jack.
Thanks. I'm of the opinion the timeline works right now. I think this is, hard uh, because, many of us are good friends and coworkers with current airport manager. I think an RFP process is in large part healthy for a given service or role or organization. And the ones I've participated in past, I think are the reasons for my thinking on that. So yeah, I think it would be good. I think there are things that is just like a good pilot is always learning. I think there are things that we may discover in this that would make the entire organization better. And I just generally think it would be a healthy process for something that is, cards as significant as this role.
Great, thank you. David.
Yeah, and I, consistent with what Cara was saying, and actually consistent, I think, with wherever you fall on this RFP or now or no RFP, I guess I would ask that Brian circulate to us the current contract. That may have been done previously, and I may have missed it somewhere, but as Cara is suggesting, she wants to see more detail of what's involved. And again, whichever way we go with this, we'd want to know what that detail is. And so I would ask that the current agreement be circulated to all of us to incorporate in that RFP or not RFP, whichever way we go with it.
Brian, isn't the draft that we have in front of us the current agreement?
The draft RFP that's in front of you is based upon the current contract with some additions for some of the scope of work, clarifying that. But yes, I can absolutely circulate the current airport manager contract to the commission again. And just to follow up on one question, the Commissioner Schwartz had asked before about the proposal for cost for a particular vendor when if they decide to submit. I do have language in Section 6 of the draft RFP, which is the proposal submission requirement. So that's what we're asking potential RFP respondents to submit information to us as part of the RFP. And one of the bullet points that I have in there is cost proposal. So RFP respondents shall provide a detailed annual cost proposal for the scope of work / services identified in this RFP. But I'm happy to add some clarifying language to that section later on in the RP, talking about compensation, just to make sure it's clear that one of the things, in order for you to be an eligible respondent to the RFP, one of the pieces of information that you must submit is a cost proposal for your services if you're responding to the RFP. So I can add that.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I had noticed that, and I took it, I probably, from what you just said, I did read it wrong. I took that section as what their costs, like contract costs to the city, not their compensation. So that was the distinction there.
Thank you for that clarification. We have any other comments or questions? So then tonight, what we can do is we can certainly vote on some clarification questions for Brian. And it sounds like we would still want to continue to maybe add a little bit more, but we're getting very close, and maybe we would have something finalized by the next meeting, possibly. So I would say I'm happy to pose and make a motion to the body tonight if you want to do that. One is, do you want to proceed with an RFP process or not? And if you say yes, well, then Brian continues to work on this. And if you say no, that's it, we're done. And then based on your answer, we would then answer the question, the duration of the manager's agreement, 5, 10, 15 years. And then, of course, comments that have already been submitted to Brian, as David suggested, some language clarification and some details. If we move ahead, then Brian would continue with that, or not. Is that about the right order, Brian? And
Yeah, I think so.
okay. So Rich, if you have a comment, I would say the comment could be constructive towards the language design or something about the document, but we have to be careful in terms of, shall we say, lobbying or not lobbying a position for or against the process.
Well, I just wanted to point out that certainly at the end of, if the RFP is not chosen to go now, you can always revisit it at the end or when the contract comes up further. As per timelines, certainly that's up to the body. The assumption, the way this has worked in the past is Maury Airplane Company has used its staff as the FBO to manage the airport, to move the snow, to mow the grass, to do the meetings and whatever else. So a contract offered to, for instance, Maury Airplane Company for more than the FBO duration would be difficult to sign simply because having the staff available would not be readily available. It'd have to develop different sources. So I just want to let you know about that as a consideration. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the reality of the process, and that's the reality that the city would have to live with. It is just that. So, if in some different alternate universe, that's where you have to sort of put your mindset. You're the manager, you are being contracted and paid as the manager a set amount of money, and you are passing the money that is allocated to you to contract services through the Maury FBO to cut the grass and do the snow. So if there was some other manager and it wasn't you, that person would be left with the same set of problems. In theory, they could go to the FBO and say, hey, can I pay you to cut the grass and shovel the snow? But obviously, the FBO owner, whoever that person is, wouldn't have to attend meetings anymore or go to or lobby on behalf of the airport in terms of with the BOA or city interface or handle noise complaints or anything. I mean, that's how the city does it now. The city has money. It goes to somebody and it pays them to do something.
Mhm.
And I think if you look back at our previous meeting minutes going way back, previous commissions have stated the complexity of the city's current arrangement, which opens up, a whole nother discussion. We can't get into that here. And that is, does the city even want to have an airport manager? Or does the city want to award all services to one entity or not? Okay. Commissioner Rubin, you haven't spoke up and now you're going to.
Just remind me again when the current contract runs through.
Just December 31 of 2026.
December 31 of 2026. So one option could be that we continue. So are we talking about an RFP then for the end of 2026 and the contract from that point forward?
Yes, if you were to do an RFP process, the contract would be for January 1, 2027 through December 31 of 2031. So if we were to use that 5-year term that was discussed tonight.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, Carl, did you want to speak or is your hand up?
Yeah, it was just for clarification. So if we were to say, yes, go ahead with the RFP process, we are specifically talking about this upcoming review beginning or contract January 1st, 2027, or are we talking about just a process in general for another future date? Is the motion that we would be deciding would be for the 2027 start date, or it would be, yes, we think this is valuable, let's start working on it, but we aren't determining yet which contract cycle?
Yeah, so you would want to be very clear in your motion as to what you're asking. Either one of those motions would be appropriate. So if the body was of the intent that you wanted to go through an RFP process now into some point in early 2026 with the understanding that at the conclusion of that RFP process, you'd award a contract for a new 5-year period starting January 1 of 27 through December 31 of 26. That could be one. That is one option. So that is one motion you could make. So we would be starting that process now. If the commission felt like you weren't ready for that, but was still interested, we weren't ready for that timeline, but was interested in the RFP process as an idea and wanted to continue to work on that, that could be a separate, different motion where you're saying, no, the interest of the commission is to work on an RFP process, but not to have it start the cycle in January 1 of 27, but at a future date determined by the body.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. And again, I would feel that or think that part of the process would be kind of beefing up the contract and going through some of the things that would become part of the RFP process. Is that correct? That would be part of it, looking at not only how we word the RFP, but the contract itself?
Yeah, and that would happen whether you decided to do, that could happen whether you decided to do an RFP process now, or you just wanted to extend the existing contract. You would have time between, now and end of next year to review, the current contract, make a proposal on how you'd want the contract language to potentially change. So both options are available to you with either motion you would choose to make tonight, but you can't make both. So just to be clear, it's either you want to do the RFP process now, or you want to do it at a point in the future, not including this cycle that's going to be coming up starting in 2027.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yep, and so that's okay. So so the first motion would be then to this body. Bottom line is, so Brian, we can either have one motion or the other. Either the motion is to move ahead with an RFP process for the renewal for the renewal of January 2027, Yes or no? And I would present that motion to the body, see if there's a second or not. If there's no second, it dies.
That's correct. It would
Um,
require a second.
and if and then of course optionally you can say, well, does this body want to continue um would it be not evaluated in the RFP process, or is it we want to um examine future language and state of the airport manager renewal agreement for 2027?
It could be both. So if you choose to do the RFP later, so not for this upcoming cycle, but for a future cycle, the motion could be that the commission wants to continue to review an RFP process for a future cycle and review the current airport manager's contract for any changes that might be that the
Right.
commission that the body might be interested in making prior to any extension of the existing contract.
Okay. So it could be without an RFP, because that was kind of the impression I got from Cara, was that you're interested in saying, well, I want the future manager's agreement to incorporate some updated language or responsibilities and details. And I mean, that would just be kind of a normal course of business for anybody of the city to look at any future agreement with anybody. So, I mean, that can easily be made to even tonight. And David.
Yeah, couldn't either of these, I'm getting a little confused here as the
Yeah,
timing.
it's okay.
Couldn't either of these proposals include language that whichever one we choose, that this body make a determination by June 15th or whatever of 2026, as opposed to rushing into an RFP right now, or the converse, which is saying we're not going to do anything for the full next 5-year cycle. Couldn't either of these motions just say that we'll make that determination, that we'll have a final RFP done, or we'll make the determination that we're going to either have an RFP or a contract, and this body will make that decision by June 15th or some other appropriate date that gives enough time.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, we can, I guess, that's why I say the one question before us is, we want to move ahead with an RFP right now with a deadline of January 1, 2027. Yes or no? So we can say no. We can certainly then make another motion after that and say, well, we want to continue to work on the manager's agreement, and we want to have a redraft of it in appropriate language for future state at renewal of January 1, 2027. And as you suggest, we could incorporate into that well, I don't even think we'd have to put language in there for RFP, or would we, Brian? I mean, what would the city want from us?
I mean, you wouldn't, but unless
Yeah,
I get direction from this body that you want to continue to work on the RFP process, I would need to know that. Otherwise, I would take your silence on that question to mean that you don't want me to continue to work on it, which
right.
again, your prerogative.
Yeah, I mean, so this really is this body's prerogative. Just reminding you that, the reason this is in front of us is because Capital Fight brought it to us and is requesting that we specifically go to an RFP process. And it has expressed their concern over the fact that there hasn't been an RFP process, and feels that that's what should be happening right here and now. Cara?
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. I'm uncomfortable with making a decision tonight about whether we continue or not with the RFP for the contract beginning January 1st. I feel there's a lot of value in the process, but I don't feel like in a place to make that decision. Like, I don't know if that's what David, you were referring to, that do we have to make that decision tonight about shutting down the RFP process, or yay, let's go ahead right now? I feel personally I need a little bit more time to look at that, particularly because I really have my focus on the wording and the responsibilities that are in the airport manager's contract now. For me, that seems like a higher priority. I can respect that it's been brought to the table now, but I'm not the best at wording motions, but I would like to see a motion that we take on looking at the wording of the airport manager's contract and come up with some performance criteria in there and some other wording that we continue to look at the RFP process as a valuable way of getting information, but that we can reserve the right to look at that and make a decision about the 2027 contract at a later date, even though I recognize I asked about what's an appropriate timeline, the 6 months to a year. It feels premature for me to make a clear decision about the January 1st, 2027 without actually going through more of this process. So I guess that's where
Okay.
I'm coming from.
Okay, gotcha. David.
Yeah, well, Cara was just saying the point I was getting to, and what I'm trying to express is that in
Mhm.
order to cure that we have that additional language for that second motion, that we're not giving up on the RFP process. We're just extending our time period to review the things that Cara's indicating she believes need to be reviewed. And consistent with that, it was asked earlier in this meeting of Brian of when people typically, how much time is typically given for an RFP. And as I understood Brian to state, anywhere from a year to 6 months before the date. Well, that's what would give us to that June date to put something out there that would give us 6 months to conclude any proposals if we go ahead with an RFP.
Yeah, and I should caveat what I said with a little bit that, again, I don't have a ton of experience with this type of RFP that's specific for airport management services. This, pretty unique thing. But for other RFPs for that level of professional service, we'll call it, again, typical, not everywhere, but typical is 6 months to a year when you're potentially looking at changing to a different vendor that has not been providing you that service because there's transition in there.
Okay, thank you. Jack?
Is it, I'm not sure if this is reasonable or not. Would something along the lines, time-wise, be, we'll make a decision on March 1st. And between now and then, we'll work on the RFP language and we work on the management agreement. And on March 1st, we either issue the RFP or we don't in either event. I think the other corollary thing could be, well, we're going to renew a contract for a year to give us additional time if we think we need it to continue to improve those documents. Gives us 3/4 of the year to submit, digest, and make a decision about the entire process, and we have a quarter here to fix the RFP and the contract agreement.
Charles?
I'd like to second Jack's motion.
Sure. Gotcha. Okay, so then the motion is at this time tonight to not move ahead with an RFP, but to continue to simply work on the language of the current manager. Oh, David, I'll hold off on making a motion and let David speak.
Well, I just want to make I guess what I
Are
could
you,
say.
David? You may speak the motion.
No, that's okay. I just
No,
want to make,
please do.
I just want to make a friendly amendment to what's suggested, and that's that we make a decision by the first meeting in March. So in other words, not March 1st, but the first Thursday in March, at our meeting at that time, to either have come up with an agreement and language for an RFP and or to come up with an agreement to simply extend the current contract and give us that additional time to review the matters that we've discussed here today. That would be the motion.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm curious what a normal turnaround time is for when you put out an RFP for returning submissions and evaluating them and making a decision. Is that
yeah.
a 3-month process, 6-month process? What are we talking about realistically with this group?
Yeah, I mean, for professional services, let's just take architecture for a minute. Not again, not the same as this, but when we've done, at least in previous communities that I've worked in, when I've done RFPs for design services, typically you provide respondents with about a month once the RFP is posted to respond, a month, 6 weeks, somewhere in that time frame, and then depending on which bodies all need to review and make a decision, then you're talking probably 2 or so months to get it through committees and in the final decision body, which in this case is the Common Council. So yeah, you're talking 3-4 months for a standard RFP process. So about a month or so to respond, and then a couple months to get through review process and final determination on the respondent that you select.
So would a March, I guess what I'm curious is would March give us enough time before the end of this contract anyway? Realistically.
We don't know that. This is this.
Yeah, again, you'd be close to 6 months, but again, there is no hard and fast rule about this type of, or any professional services for that matter. Again, the rule of thumb I was giving you is you typically want to give people at least 6 months notice of a decision that's made of this magnitude. So I think it's possible. I can't guarantee that we'd have a decision by June 1 or the first meeting of June, but that I think it would be an item that we could continue to discuss as a body if that's the direction you go with this motion, is to figure out more exactly that time frame before you come to a final decision on the first airport commission meeting of March.
Really, I guess based on that, Brian, do we even have to make a motion? Or if we're not going to really come to a decision until March, or what we're doing is we're committing right now to really a decision in March and saying that
The way
tonight.
I understand the motion is that yeah, you're committing to making a decision one way or the other by the first airport commission meeting month. So either you're deciding to proceed with an RFP process, or you are agreeing to recommend extension of the existing airport management contract. So that's my understanding of the motion.
Brian, go ahead.
Well, I guess that's what I'm a little bit concerned about is just listening to all of these factors going into this. Does that March date allow for enough time for an RFP to realistically go through the process and still give notice, make a decision and still give notice by a June 1st date, which I know isn't hard and fast, but sounds like it would be professional courtesy one way or the other. Do we need to move that March 1st date up? Is, I guess, what I'm getting at, to give it realistically enough time to be evaluated, to be created, evaluated, or get results, evaluate them, and then make a decision. Would that happen between March 1st and June 1st?
Well, between now and March 1st, we are going to, if we were going to go with this motion between now and March, first meeting in March, we will finalize all the language of what the future agreement will be, and we will finalize the language of what will go in an RFP. Then, if we're staying on track after that meeting, at that point, if we're committed to the RFP process, it will continue to move forward and simply be put out by the city. So what Brian is really essentially asking us tonight is, are we going to commit to an RFP process? And we're also putting a time frame into this to continue to develop the RFP itself and the language in it. So if we say, or we say no, there's just going to be no RFP. We say that tonight, doesn't mean we cannot continue to look at the language of the current manager's agreement And when that manager's agreement expires in December of 2026, whatever that agreement is, and the city will offer that agreement out to Maury, if Maury's interested. And if Maury's not interested, that same agreement will be out there, but there will not be an RFP process. So that's what we're really doing. We're essentially saying we're going to commit to an RFP process. We're just going to set a deadline of March, first meeting in March, to have contract and language done. Does that sound clear to everybody? Okay. So the motion then would be to move ahead with an RFP process to be language of the RFP and manager's agreement to be finalized by the first airport commission meeting of March of 2026. And then at that time, this body will simply vote on the finalization of that new agreement and language. But we will continue with the RFP process. I think I've got that right, Brian.
That's not quite how I understand what the motion was. So it was either by the first airport commission meeting in March, the commission will decide whether or not to proceed with an RFP process, or alternatively, if they decide not to proceed with an RFP process, then they would pursue contract extension with the existing vendor for airport management services. In the interim period between now and that first meeting in March, we would continue to work on both the RFP template and review the existing airport manager's contract and make any modifications that we would want to both those documents. And then by the first airport commission meeting in March, decide which path the body would like to take. That was my understanding of the motion.
That's correct, Brian. That is how I intended it and thought I stated it.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. So let Brian finish making his notes and make sure it's clear.
Yep, I think I've got it.
Okay, go ahead and read it one more time, please.
Yeah, that by the first airport commission meeting in March of 2026, the airport commission will review both the RFP template and process and the current airport manager's contract and make a determination on to either one, proceed with an RFP process, or two, alternatively, recommend extension of the existing airport manager's contract with the current vendor based upon any new contract language that might be added.
Okay, do I have a second for the language as stated by Brian?
Second.
Cara? Oh, I'm sorry. Lindsay, thank you. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. On to item number 2. Discussion, consideration, and potential action on capital flight, land lease extension, and facility development. And you can and I will open this with statement. Brian, should I read it now or let Matt Hopefeld go first?
You're talking about a statement from the mayor?
Yeah.
Sure, might as well read it now and then open it up for explanation.
Okay, great. I'm just pulling it up. All right. So as to this item, the mayor submitted a comment, and she said, I wanted to reach out to you as the chair of the Airport Commission to express my support for the capital flight land lease expansion and facility development. I believe that this project will add energy into this portion of the city and increase routine hotel stays nearby, offer more event options, as most events options in the city are downtown or on the southwest side of the city. And I believe that I believe that in the end, this facility development proposal will add more local and more tourism dollars spent in the local economy. Thank you, Mayor Emily Kuhn. Okay, and Brian, should we just start off with Matt?
Yes, to have him give a brief overview of the proposal.
Sure. Matt, is your audio working? Are you functioning?
I think so. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, sounds good.
Fantastic. So, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. This is really the reintroduction of a project that we had submitted about 7 years ago. The timing for that was really based on the growth projection of the company. We were really running out of room, and that certainly has not changed. At that time, we were told to reintroduce this when the master plan had really been finalized, making sure that the land was not going to be encumbered by a future runway or any other such findings of the master plan. This is ultimately a hangar, so an aviation structure at the airport that again allows our business not only to continue its growth, which is fantastic, slight reorganization of the duties and the tasks within the current facilities that we have, and also expand on the events and community engagement that we have been dedicated to and demonstrated the last 10, 11 years that we've been at the airport. So this building is a bit hybrid use and thoughtfully designed to not only do the aviation components that our business does and that we need, but also thoughtfully engineered and designed to be a event venue, and also thoughtfully designed and executed that if someday, if many things would happen, that it could be connected to a existing terminal that could potentially be reimagined to match the aesthetic of that building. Whether that happens, who knows? Chips will go where they go. But the point of that is that we've been thoughtful in how we are approaching this. So it gives options and flexibility and really allows us to grow and continue to serve the community, both aviation and at large. So I think that's it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
You've, and I guess this is questions for Brian and Matt at the same time. You've had some preliminary just review with planning and things like that.
Yes, with Abby Atune primarily, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it submitted as materials to the planning department. They're taking a look at it. Ultimately, if this concept were to move forward, the plan commission would be one of the bodies that would take a look at it from a pure zoning perspective, in terms of kind of site plan review, if you will. The conversation tonight is more along the idea of the concept of, is the airport commission interested in this idea and want to see it move forward, and then depending on that feedback from the airport commission, then we'd move it through other city committees for review.
Sure, great. Brian, if you could pull up on our screen the footprint of what Capital Flight is proposing, and then what I'll just have you do is jump down to page 97 of the packet, just so everybody can take a quick look, or if everybody is in the packet and is comfortable looking through that.
This is
Right,
the
there we
image.
go.
Yep, the image that was included in the submittal concept.
Yeah. So there you see that. And then just jump down to page 97. Perfect. So I think what you'll see is what Capital Flight has submitted and what is in the master plan documentation. There's a a good clear representation. And Capital Flight even indicated potential areas for a viewing area, just I would call it south of the electrical vault area. And I guess right out of the gate here, I would like to make sure that Brian, that be included in the review process with the plan commission. Maybe Mead and Hunt has to get involved.
Sir, you said, can you see that one more time?
Yeah. So you see the electrical vault on page 97.
Yep.
And then when you jump back up to Capital Flight's proposal, it's the viewing area. I understand it's an approximation, but essentially to maintain a viewing area would be, yeah, somewhere near that vault, around it,
And-
south of it, near it, something.
To bring some clarity to that, we approached Middleton Parks Department about a year and a half ago about what could be done between a private-public collaboration to bring an airport park viewing area, whatever the scale and the scope of that is, but just very basic preliminary kind of concepts about, a sheltered area that would kind of encapsulate that electrical vault, be grouped into kind of one thing, so that EAA chapters and various, civic organizations could not only enjoy that stage there and have the ability to pass through the fence for, Young Eagle Ride days and things like that, but also, again, the community at large to be able to enjoy the airport at a heightened experience, being covered, possibly having, play structures. There's examples of airport parks from really all over the country, and we looked at a few of them, but bringing something a bit nicer to that area so that that can be utilized in the future as well. And really, we just wanted to kind of start exploring what the options between that collaboration could be, and being there to spearhead it so that hopefully we get that goal accomplished as well.
Yeah. And obviously it would be a fenced in area, just to make that clear. Okay.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, no, I let the kids run out there. It's chase the airplanes. Jack and then Kara.
I have a number of comments and questions about the proposal, but just on this particular item, we'll start with that. What are my understanding is that's airside. Are there limitations between what you can do airside? I thought that was, modifying our ALP and required a whole different chapter and verse than doing something on land side.
Correct. So that would just be as we move into this process, because it would be changing the fence line of what maybe is right now on the ALP as airport movement area or restricted movement area. That would have to obviously be looked at. Somebody like Mead and Hunt could take a draft look at it and at least give us an initial thought. And that would just be part of the discussion process. But I just wanted, so there's two different kind of moving pieces here.
But does that require an act of supreme work from the FAA to reacquire land from them? I'd love to see it.
I don't know.
I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to it by any stretch. I'm in favor of it. I'm just wondering what the effort is here what the
Yep,
lift is to get that done.
I don't know. I don't know. Um, that's why we're here to talk about it. So we can at least give Brian some technical information so he has some direction at least on who to ask questions to, and how to kind of parse out the project, so, to also help Capital Flight in this, because the thing is, I'm just thinking way ahead here. It might be where what Capital Flight is proposing, obviously, to the next to the hangar, the FBO building is just fine, but it might not be appropriate to show the park area in there because it could complicate the process. So, it might be two different phases to a whole project like this. I think it's just what Capital Flight is saying is, hey, but by the way, we're thinking big here. So these are all the possibilities of the area.
And that's correct, Dave. That's how we'd prefer to approach this. But yeah, we're trying to take a large kind of visionary look at this.
And I think sometimes cities lack vision, so we might only bite off one piece at a time. Tara, and then Ryan.
Yeah, Jack, basically addressed, the questions I was wondering about, and you did too, about do these have to be looked at separately with the FAA? Like, how does this affect timing? I definitely think a viewing in a park area is extremely important, especially for a connection with, the community and to keep that. So how it would be developed, how it would be positioned, the actual viewing, all of that, yes, is very key, but I don't know how you get a handle on the timeline of how that affects the ALP and moving fences and the FAA. So basically those are my questions. Like, how do we get a handle on creating something like that within an existing fence line on our program, given we're dealing with an FAA shutdown right now and other issues? Timing may be in making a decision may be affected by some of these conversations we have tonight.
Ryan.
Yeah, one of the questions I had, and this is probably a minor point, is that isn't that footprint of that proposed building right where there are a couple of memorials and things? And if so, what would happen with those?
Correct. So Brian will have to simply look into that and get some answers. So, Rich, you have some input? Oh, you're muted.
We're looking at the only developable section or property on the airport at the moment.
Yes.
So,
well, I mean, yes and
yes.
no, I guess.
Yeah, practically speaking. Yet we're not thinking about putting this out for proposal as to who or what entity, corporate, whatever else might want to build there. This doesn't seem appropriate.
Rich, let me just slow you down for one moment. If you're speaking on behalf as the manager, that's fine. But I think we just have to make sure we're very careful here, and how we, go down this path.
Okay.
So yeah. Just
well, as the airport manager, I would like to see a fair process. And again, the city had decided, this body had decided to continue that as a park area. That was done under John Halleck early on in his second tenure as the commission chair.
Mhm.
Now, making a decision to open the only remaining lot to development is something that the city needs to, this body and the city need to take a look at. And then it would imagine that the process would be, okay, what is the best use for this? Or put the whole thing out for, as you would say, proposal as to who. I'm sure there are a number of people who would love to build a hangar on that spot.
Well, I
So,
would imagine anybody can bid on a piece of land.
mhm.
Capital Flight is just the first in line.
Just
Right. Well, David,
point of order,
the
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
we're
Yeah, I'm sorry.
discussing the specific proposal of Capital Flight. We're not
Correct.
discussing the
Okay.
overall process for awarding
Yeah,
land.
so then really, Rich, I think as Charles pointed out, this is a discussion of, Capital Flight's proposal. And it's to speculate regarding other people, other businesses, other interests. Brian, you can provide us some guidance on how that would even come into play into future discussion. I think the point is, as Charles said, Capital Flight's proposals in front of this body, and what are this body's thoughts about that? And does this body have any thoughts specific to it, and any guidance for city staff, in moving ahead with it?
Right. Well, and then I would also, as airport manager, want to see a cost benefit analysis. The land lease, the property that will be coming in versus what it cost the city to prepare that lot for building, if that is indeed part of the process. Something that else should be considered is the potential, again, the spacing of the buildings. Couldn't get an answer on this one, but if you have two large buildings in close proximity, that may require sprinkling of both buildings. So that would be an additional expense or potential that should be considered. So there's a bunch of things involved with all of this. If this is simply a discussion of in concept with the future to be decided after we go in more detail, certainly. But I'm just trying to bring out what concerns that I have for our non-lapsing fund for the rest of it, as well as the loss. I know we can potentially build another park area, but the loss of the existing park.
Okay. Charles.
Yeah, so when I'm looking at this, it's fundamentally a real estate question, and what is the highest and best use of the developable land that we have at the airport in order to maintain the financial health of the enterprise fund. How much revenue does this land currently generate for the airport?
Well,
Brian.
the answer is nothing. Now, and what it would generate is in the neighborhood, depending on the land lease, but if it goes at 50 cents a square foot, it's going to be about $2,500 a year, maybe a bit more, depending on the footprint.
Jack.
I think the 2,500 is M1. M2 that the mayor and others are talking about are the additional utilization of the airport and additional services in the community, broader city community in which we're talking. So I think Rich makes a point. It is the highest, the only currently available piece of commercial airside and landside land on the airport. We've had a going business on the field now for 11 years. That's been growing. I completely understand and could see the value of what Capital Flight is doing here. In a little bit here, we're going to be talking about hangar expansion options. I think one of the things we might want to consider is if we were to proceed with this current proposal, do we put language in our leases that the city would, if or when the terminal building and the existing FBO building get redone, or we relay out that area of the airport grounds? Can the city purchase the existing building and pay for, the construction, not pay for, but purchase the existing building that would pay for the business capital flight in this instance to build in a commercial space on the north east corner if and when we were able to develop those hangar spaces. Something for us to consider. That way you would preserve the hangar or the terminal and maybe commercial fuel and FBO space up in the front, and would have an option for capital flight to proceed right now. And at some point, the city would not be bound by the businesses, right next to each other in the front of the airport property, but would have lease language that would allow them some flexibility to do something in the northeast corner if or when those a commercial site could be developed there.
Sure. I think Brian will get into that a little bit more in our later agenda items. As for this, Matt Fleming, please.
Yeah, I just want to, as I sit and look at this and think about this moving forward and the kind of things that we'd want in terms of a land lease, I'm just looking at how this area is described in the airport master plan. And, certainly as I understand this broadly, there are aspects of this that I think seem to potentially fit very well. But, this is not just like any other hangar space in the airport that, we could just rent to anybody and just have them keep airplanes. And again, that's not really what's being proposed. But, this is in the plan recommended this be preserved for either future terminal expansion needs or other similar uses that provide for community-wide use of the airport. And so one of the things I think we'd be thinking about is a lease that maybe gets a little bit more deeply into the use to be sure that this area is, more public facing and kind of providing services that are kind of broader use to the airport and not necessarily just one individual business focused. But I mean, like I said, certainly this is being proposed for event space and everything. So there's definitely aspects of this that fit very nicely into that language. But I think that's something we're going to want to put into a lease. An ordinary hangar land lease, business goes one way or the other, all of a sudden this could become a space that, doesn't serve those public functions as well. So I think that's just something that I think the commission should sort of keep in mind and be thinking about. How do we want to be sure, however the space is used, that it fits within how it's been described in the master plan?
So Matt, to that same question then, does the city have that kind of power then over, say, a business that wants to develop in that space? So we can say, yeah, you can build there, you can do something, we support it, but here are the conditions upon that space. They would actually have to make it available, say, to the city if the city requested it for public event or percentage of percent public
like that.
events?
I mean, I guess that's an ongoing discussion that I think we'd want to have with Matt and just see, put a finer point on that vision and how this is supposed to be, really something that is more community facing. I mean, not that that doesn't serve any private interests, but like I said, this is an area in the master plan that is specifically talked about as being reserved for more community or broader airport facing sorts of uses. And what those exact use restrictions or limitations or things would look like, I mean, we'd have to talk further with Matt about that. Like I said, certainly some of the uses he's talking about definitely, in my view anyway, fit that mold. But I think this commission too, you are the experts on how the airport operates and what are the needs for the general aviation community there, and how this terminal area should expand, and anything that goes there, at least as far as the airport master plan is concerned, should be consistent with that.
Yep,
We want to
gotcha.
make sure our whatever land lease we enter into ensures that those uses and goals are met and continue to be that.
I mean, I see how the city has done this in other projects that's developed around the city where an apartment block building is put up or something like that, and written into it are a certain number of units that have to be
Well, but this is different. I mean, this is city property, and this is the city's airport, and this is an area that, I mean, this isn't just like our general hangar area. This is a specially identified space
Mhm.
on the airport, and that's really the yeah. I wouldn't say this is akin to conditions we put on zoning or how people use their private property. This is an area that is, like, yeah, as I understand in reading the airport master plan, that's sort of supposed to, serve the broader interests of the airport. And like I said, certainly a private business can do that, but our other building there is under specific limitations. It was built by MADC, but leased back, and it's preserved for, there's the terminal area, and the rest is preserved for use of the FBO, and it's subject to those lease conditions. And so I think there'd be something similar here, but of course it was a lot easier to enter into those agreements and have very strong sort of public purpose sort of things in the lease, because you had MADC essentially being the lessor, and even at the time that lease was entered, MADC was much more intertwined with the city at that time than it is today. So it wasn't as much of a totally different entity as it is now. So, but at any rate, like I said, I mean, certainly nothing inherent in what's being proposed that's contrary to the plan. But I just think we need to think about how we want to talk about that, and how we want to make sure that whatever sort of public facing or community benefits or airport benefits there are in having another building there, and the type of services that are going to be provided there, and the type of use that's going to be there, that will continue to serve those broader purposes into the future.
Gotcha. Carl.
Yeah, I mean, Matt may not feel this way since he originally submitted this, 7 or 8 years ago, that it may feel like it's been, time seems to be dragging, but I'm getting from this conversation that time to really investigate. I'm looking at my other computer has the plan on here, but some of these things, like obviously the FAA involvement, and Jack had brought this up too, is like my thought is, and what Matt just brought up, Matt Fleming, about MADC owning the terminal building. And just a question of when I see that as something involved in this process, and as well as a potential limiting or potential something getting in the way of all these thoughts. When is the land lease up for the terminal building with MADC?
That is up at the end of 2028, and that's a
2028.
completely separate question that the Airport Commission and ultimately the Common Council will have to decide, whether they want to extend an agreement with MADC or take that, step out of the agreement and own the terminal building.
Okay, so 2028 is kind of a delineation mark here. And one of the things that I'm aware of is that if the city does own that building, there are opportunities for FAA funds to renovate or start over. Like right now, we don't have that, I believe, at our at our disposal. So if, that terminal building is, I guess the FAA looks at the life of a building investment for 40 years. Well, by the time we keep, looking at this, and maybe the MADC land lease, we're getting close to that time frame for the existing terminal building. So I would hope in this process, we're also considering, the potential, obviously, of the city purchasing it, if FAA funds are possible, for then looking at the needs of the terminal building at the time, and how would that interface with a potential building next to it. So these are not my area of expertise, but these are things that I think we should consider. There's other timing and other possibilities here as well.
Rich.
Yeah, just a clarification. The FAA will not purchase used or an existing building. That may change. Also, terminals tend to be on the lower end of the funding. They will finance an actual build on a terminal to the extent that the feds do. I know Marshfield opted not to take the federal money because they wanted to build their terminal the way they wanted to build it and not constrained or with the federal requirements. And it turned out quite nicely for them. But yeah, they might finance building a terminal, especially if something is exceedingly old and or there is no terminal, but probably not going to spend any money renovating an existing terminal, not federal money.
Good to know. Thank you. Carl?
Yeah, it seems like there's some discretion in that. I'm just responding to Rich, but I was curious about this, so I actually called the BOA and spoke with them about it, and because I was aware of a project up in Wausau, and Wausau is a city-owned FBO that absolutely the FAA took it, basically renovated it, or I mean, and they just are completing that now. So I know that exists as a possibility. It's not a guarantee, but I just feel like those are some things that if FAA money is available and we've got some timing possibilities, coming up in the next couple of years of that becoming under city ownership. I don't know how exactly that all figures into our process right now, but it is definitely something to consider, of what gets built on that piece of property can interface with a potential renovation or rebuild of the existing FBO building.
Brian can certainly look into, I think, answering some of those questions in terms of implications of a future state. And I guess the other thing that Brian and Beth Hofeld can do and is have a discussion. Yeah, and Matt Fleming can obviously continue to provide context to it, is Capital Flight's willingness to honor the intent of the language of the master plan and the use of that property. Does that sound about right, Brian, for follow-up items on your end?
I've got a few, so I'm sure there'll be more that come up as we go along, but I think I've got a list of about 5 or so.
Okay. Do you want to review any of those right now for people?
No, because they're kind of all spread out through my notes. I don't have them in a clean
Okay,
1 through 5 list.
that's fine. Does anybody else have any other thoughts or input? Jack?
I guess I just encourage Matt and Brian, your subsequent discussions here about this, to think about lease related terms to meet those 2 commitments. I think adherence to the public related stuff, and I think that's in the spirit of what Matt, you're trying to accomplish here. But also, I think on the city side, Matt, what you would tolerate in the lease in terms of city's rights to replace, build an equivalent replacement for your hangar, at some point if or when they ever needed the space or wanted to, and they get other suitable locations built on the field for you.
We'd love for them to build us a new building down the road. Sure. We can go bigger and better. Why not?
Well, it would be in exchange for the existing building. It wouldn't necessarily be free.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to kind of address some of these things, there certainly are a lot of hypotheticals in life. What's going to happen in the future, this, that. One thing has been consistent, certainly our commitment to doing a lot of community facing things and wanting to escalate that up further, I think fits into the master plan perfectly. I also think that this piece of land has been not hiding. It is in plain sight, and we're the only entity that's ever come forward and wanted to do something on it, that's presented a formal petition to lease this land. And that was 7 years ago, and then now again. So, the opportunity has been there for 20 years for someone to come in and want to do something. And we are a growing business that is invested in the airport. We have thrived at the airport despite some logistical disadvantages of being spread between multiple facilities, and frankly, at times not getting a great deal of support from leadership that you would think in a normal world would support you. There's frankly a lot of obstruction that's occurred here, and it's just sad. So, that's my comment on that.
Appreciate you expressing your comment and observation. Okay, who has their hands up? Charles and Rich.
Rich had his up before me.
Okay, thank you. Rich, go ahead.
Just as a clarification, we get inquiries about hangar lots almost on a weekly basis. And as per the airport commission and the city's position, we have said there is nothing available. Now, there are an awful lot of people that obviously do not know that park space was going to be developed. So I would say, no, the people don't know that it's available to be developed.
Charles.
So I think what I'm hearing is that before we look at this again, Matt, and Brian need to have a conversation about potential lease terms consistent with what we have in the master plan, and uses to preserve some aspect of the public use.
Correct. I'm hearing that message clearly also. Ryan.
I guess that's one question I had is it defined as to what public use actually is that would be put into a lease term?
That would probably be one for city attorney and Brian Gatto to
Yeah, I mean, I think we can certainly help in that, but I think this commission probably needs to also provide some assistance. I mean, the master plan is, and again, I encourage everyone to take a look at it. It's page 3-57, and look at that language in the master planning process. And I mean, frankly, I hope all of you have a little better idea as airport users and much more expertise and experience with airports and what you'd like to see here to maybe have a little more understanding of the detail that is behind the general policy that's talked about. But all I can say is it's it's pretty clear that we've got a lot of hangars where you just have private people. It's where they go put their planes and they come and go in service of their own desires or their own business. And this is not that. This is not a place we would just make available for anyone to use for whatever purpose they want. That's themselves. This is an area that the master plan talks about something as being different, potentially terminal expansion, or community-wide use of the airport. It's a place that has some public significance, and I guess I kind of see maybe what we would end up doing is something that looks almost more like a PUD zoning sort of document that would be, but within the language of a lease that would just talk about generally what are the kind of uses that would go on here, such that they would all be in some way uses that further what you want to see for the airport, be an airport amenity, even though operated by a private operator. I have to go back and look at the say. I mean, a lot of what may be in the existing SASO agreement might be usable in there, or other typical SASO type services. But we'd have to think about that. But I think this commission's probably in the best position to sort of know really what is that best fit to serve the airport in the way that's talked about in the master plan.
But the master, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, and essentially that's Maury's doing a lot of that right now with their facility, and the nature of the events that are hosted also.
Yeah.
Ryan, and then Carl.
So a question I had was, does the airport master plan specifically exclude or allow for a private business to be on that footprint of land?
Well, the language, as I see it, is pretty broad. It's again, I think that it's kind of condensed in that last sentence. It says it is recommended the city preserve this undeveloped area for future terminal expansion needs or other similar uses that provide for community-wide use of the airport. That's it is pretty broad, so it gives a lot of discretion here. But I mean, clearly tying it to something similar to future terminal expansion needs suggests that this is not just somebody that wants to come park their airplane there. It's on some level providing some kind of amenity, but could it be a restaurant, or anything, something like that? I would say something like that. Seems to me that would fit in there, but those who are regular users of the airport might have a slightly different idea, a narrower idea, or a more expansive idea than I may for what that really means. But if anything, it just does to me clearly mean that this is not just whatever some private entity wants to do, which maybe include just keep their airplanes there when they're not using them and shut up when they're not there. I mean, that's not, I think, what the space is being reserved for.
And I think I'd like to point out the fact that, the history of our company has brought out thousands and thousands and thousands of people to the airport. That has certainly been a positive thing to the community and to the airport. And by virtue, the building that we've donated and initiatives that we've taken have raised millions of dollars for charity. And I don't know what better, community use space could be than a beautiful event space that also works to address the needs of a business that has invested so much into the airport, and the lack of storage that the airport has overall. It really kind of checks all of those boxes.
Thank you, Matt. Carl.
This is back to you, Matt Hofelt. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that your company has quite an investment in Charlie 29 in the airport and a lot of the community facing activities that you've done. I think that is, been demonstrated consistently. I'm just curious if, obviously you're going to suss through some things with Brian and Matt Fleming about what that might look from the master plan. Do you have any examples of any other facilities in the state or other places that kind of match this vision? Like any way that we could point at this point of what you envision the public use contribution that you would have, or is that something that could be forthcoming?
I mean, Capital Flight, you've been to events at our hangar. So you most certainly know what those events look like and what the benefits have been. So really what this does is allow the building to be larger than it is and have ample bathrooms to be able to serve the crowds that we've typically had. We built a beautiful space. People have wanted to be in it and we've wanted them there. But the hangar that we have currently just, it has limitations. And we'd like to take that to the next level and reinvest again, multi-million-dollar investment in a facility, at the airport that again helps the businesses and helps the community overall. But are there a lot of businesses that do what we do? Absolutely not. It is a lot of work. It is something that is different than traditional, and the status quo and the ambition is something that our company has sought to bring and break. And we're on very much a leading edge of what that can look like. But certainly that's been demonstrated. Other folks that do what we do, we do it now. We just want to do it bigger and better.
Yeah, I think that was more like what I was trying to get is like of that bigger and better, and maybe now's not the venue for it. Maybe after you have conversations about what's possible, what isn't, like what would be some examples of some other things that would be offered, just so there is a sense of what is the public use, since it is such a valuable piece of property and prime and right there. It just more about like what else are you envisioning and what might that look like for people that want to come in and have events and things like that. Um anyway, just because it is a larger space, and I would
I think my answer is, if you like what we've done, we want to do it bigger and better.
I think
would
what
ask.
Kara might be getting
Go
at
ahead,
is
Jim.
more for like the public. Obviously Kara's been to events in the current hangar. I think I've been to events in the current hangar. But not everyone in Middleton has. And I think having something concrete that could be just kind of like education for the public. Not trying to cut anyone off, just that was kind of my thought, if maybe what you were getting at, Kara. Is that right?
Yeah, Lindsay. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think I was wording that well. Like I know what you've done for our airport and the community, and I volunteered and I've had that, customer service experience, but I'm more, because my focus as an airport commissioner is on serving the city, and where I see some things that we could do different with the city to really showcase all sorts of aspects of what the airport provides in our community. What, in addition to what I know, and maybe people on the commission don't know, do you anticipate offering there? And that's more the question, the line I was coming from, Matt.
Sure. And I might respond by asking a question. What do you think we should do? Where are we lacking, and what do you want to see there? What's your vision? I've shared mine over 10 years. So
I certainly wouldn't. No, I would never. I would not accuse you of anything lacking.
Yeah.
First of all, I think and again, this is a conversation for you and Matt and Brian to sort of work on. And I'm only coming from my angle and my involvement now out at the airport for 20 years is the ongoing small scale public aviation centric public events that are hosted in the Morey facilities. You know, Young Eagles are a good example. Camp Willa. I don't know. What if Maury needs a break? Can't do a pancake breakfast. Can you do a pancake breakfast?
Well, we'd love to have a parking lot
Yeah.
outside where people can access that, Dave. So this
Mhm.
allows that to happen. And, you know, will this hangar be prettier and nicer than, you know, what the current terminal hangar is? Yeah, like a lot. So, you know,
Right. Yeah. And again, I'm not being critical or questioning that aspect of it at all, because um, for those of us who've, you know, seen things, yeah, the way you put things together and the way you do things speaks for itself, and is there's no critique to be said there. Ryan.
I was just looking through what I think is the latest version of the master plan on that page 357 spilling over into page 358 here. And it does, I mean, the way I'm reading it, you know, it talks about FBO services currently being provided at the airport will meet the needs of the base and itinerant, blah, blah, blah. Planning should be initiated to preserve space for additional or expanded service providers such as Capital Flight. Capital Flight currently offers many of the same or similar services as a traditional FBO. Has recently been recognized as a SASO. This planning may include identifying space in existing hangar structures and or in the preservation or acquisition of land to accommodate development of new facilities. So I guess the way I'm reading that is that 100 by 70, that spot of land east of the terminal falls into that category, does it not? And I guess that might be more of a legal question in terms of this proposal for using that space for Capital Flight doesn't necessarily violate anything within the airport master plan, at least as what I'm reading in section 3.8 on page 357 and 358. And I guess I'm wanting to be corrected if I'm reading that wrong.
No, yeah, and actually, I had forgotten. I hadn't gone through and turned to the next page. I had forgotten the specific mention of Capital Flight. Yeah, you know, maybe I think as you know, maybe as Matt and Brian and I talk about this future, maybe what I would suggest as maybe some way for Matt to think about how we might want to word this is like, you know, well, you know, what if you know, you knew you couldn't do this anymore and we're going to give Capital Flight over to somebody else, but wanted to ensure that your legacy endured. How would you describe that in the, you know, in the deeding over of all of this? You know, I'm not sure I know exactly how to do that, but you know, I think we should be able to come up with some language that talks about the use and you know, some of the limitations, but gives you still plenty of flexibility, but still respects kind of the idea that the master plan has for the services that would be provided here. I'm certainly not looking to, you know, you need to be as flexible as you possibly can to justify your investment, but as long as we know that the use is always going to include those kind of services and you know, I keep coming back to it. I know one thing we don't want is that this just be someplace that somebody stores their airplanes, and obviously you wouldn't spend that kind of money on a building for that to happen. But you know, if you know, personal things happen, things happen to business, and you know, we want to make sure that you know, we're not just relying on your personal desires to go forward to make sure that the legal obligations to continue certain uses there, that we just always have that kind of power to ensure that that occurs.
Would it be appropriate for a line item in there? And again, I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head here in terms of should Capital Flight fold, sell, whatever, that the city gets right of first refusal on that property in that building?
I mean, that's certainly something. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly in the universe of things that we might talk about. You know, another way to go at those concerns. I'm not,
And that doesn't make me uncomfortable,
yeah.
Matt. You know, I understand the preserving of those sorts of expectations as well. So, you know, hammering out the details, you know, really, you know, there's lots of details here, but it's this land available, Capital Flight asking to put up a structure that I think fits perfectly into the use and, you know, takes things a lot farther than what, you know, other folks would probably do, as we've demonstrated. So I, you know, keeping that as straightforward as possible will help streamline.
Yep. Any other questions? So Brian, what kind of, oh, Cara, sorry.
Yeah, it's just not necessarily related to all of that, but I was just thinking back on the existing terminal building. That is the ramp also an area to the west where expansion could occur? West
I
of the
remember
terminal,
that.
excuse me.
I remember that conversation during the whole master planning process, and I think I might have asked a question like that, and we do building and stuff to the west area, and it was not it. We reasons for reasons why it's not in the current master plan. It's just not there. Maybe
Meaning
there
like
was a
just not in the master plan, or we don't,
no. I mean,
we
there.
know
I
for
don't know. There might have been requirements to have certain prerequisites for certain amount of movement area and open areas for tie down and other types of services and things. I mean, I guess that would be a separate, sort of a separate discussion from this,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thanks.
Brian, what kind of direction would you want for this body? And keep in mind, it's this body is you know, giving the city direction on this.
Yeah, I mean, what I've heard from the body is you have a couple of questions and things you want some additional research on. You want some additional conversation with Mr. Hofelt on the potential lease terms as it relates to the airport master plan, and have some of that stuff squared away, or at least some ideas and concepts to come back to you with for further discussion. So if that's the case, then I don't know that I need anything more in terms of emotion. If that's kind of the consensus of the commission.
Okay. I don't want to drag this out for another 7 years either. So I think it would, in all fairness to Capital Flight, that we at least got a nice list of things for Brian to do and to really get back to us then at the next meeting, answer some questions. So would you even need a motion from us? What would you feel comfortable with?
I think the only motion, you don't have to necessarily make it, but would be to defer discussion on the item until the next available meeting.
Okay. Commissioners, what do you think? All right. So then the motion is to simply defer the Capital Flight proposal to the next meeting, allowing the city time to at least come back with some base answer to some basic questions. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Matt Hofeld, thank you for your time tonight. And please follow up with Brian Gatto and Matt Fleming to answer some of those questions for our next meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Matt. Item number 3, discussion on aviation activity viewing area.
Mr. Chair.
Whoops. Yeah.
Could we have a brief recess for members to attend to some personal needs?
Sure.
It's been about 2 hours and 20 minutes since we started.
Yeah, let's have a recess. How much time, Charles?
5 minutes, everyone.
Okay, 5 minutes.
Sorry, my mic was off. I said we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene about 7:24. I'll leave the live stream running during our break.
Okay, thank you. Okay. It's been 5 minutes, I guess. Get everybody back here. What is like Lindsay and David and Rich. All right, is Dave back? Did he not turn his camera on? Yep, nope, that was Matt.
Nope. Yep, there is.
All right, okay. We're back from our break. And on to item number 3, discussion on an aviation activity viewing area. This was brought to the commission by Rich. And Rich, please explain, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, I suppose it ought to actually be, well, we'll continue to look at it at least. The improvement of the park area to the east of the airport or the terminal was something that I was considering and I'm still considering, and there's no reason why we couldn't, you know, the request was to be allowed to put a pavilion there. Certainly, the potential for appropriate playground material and or just a nice picnic area for families. It's being used in that space or that capability or capacity, excuse me, currently now, especially all summer. You'll see families out watching the airplanes, having their dinner or lunch or whatever else. So honestly, I think that would be a very good use of that space, and it certainly fits with the master plan as well as the original. But I think we have maybe some other things to decide before anything can be moved forward upon that.
Sure, understood. So, I mean that this, if the commission would like to discuss it or has any other more questions for Rich, we can pursue that at this time, or this is just something that can always be tabled. Ryan.
I think I do really like that idea. I mean, that was the first thing that came to mind with regards to this capital flight expansion idea into that space is what do we do with the stuff that is there? And I really do like the idea of expanding a public, and that could be, you know, potentially tied into the discussions of the lease is creating a space to replace what was right there if that capital flight building goes into place there. But I think expanding on and having a public viewing area is important. So I think we need to preserve that no matter what, either expanding what is there right now, or if we do proceed with allowing capital flight to build there, then we need to figure something else out and, you know, potentially expanding that. I mean, one of the things that, this is anecdotal, but if you remember the documentary, I think it was called 16 Right from years ago. It was about one of the airports in California. They had a huge playground with the CTAF frequency piped into the area as well, so people could hear and listen to the radio traffic at the same time. And they had a lot of aviation themed playground equipment in that area. And I always thought that that was something maybe to strive towards. Again, outside the scope of this, but I use that as like a vision of what could potentially be. And I'll stop there.
I completely agree with you, Ryan. And up until fairly recently, well, the company has not had excess resources. We have excess resources now to a certain extent. And so the looking at not only giving our hangar space for the pancake breakfast or women in aviation or another event, or letting the meeting room go for everything from safety seminars to the garden club arranging flowers to local civic organizations or the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts. All of those things we give back, wanted to give back some more. And my offer to lease that property at whatever market rate and keep it as a park by Maury Airplane Company still stands. I don't know that that's something that obviously you can't make a decision on any of that. But if we do go with an alternate space, and we'd still be interested, I definitely do not want it, the kids having access to the electrical vault. That just seems like an exceedingly bad idea. So,
Sure. So maybe two ways to view this is obviously one option is if and as the city would proceed to redevelopment of that area for our capital flight expansion, then we would direct the city, based on maybe item number 3, is to investigate what are the potential opportunities to develop a new viewing area at the airport. To the obviously south of the electrical box, and it would be going into the perimeter of the fence. It still has to be a fenced area. It's just that you would take a piece of fence that's there, remove it, and then create a new fenced area for a viewing area.
right. And I would request that it not be something that would be skipped over in this proposal for the new building. If that capital flight building goes up with the FA, that be incorporated into it if the city's serious about having that space. Because that someone said something about it would complicate the process. Well, unless we have permission to do it, we can't do it. So we might as well bring it out. If it's important enough for the city to want it, we should have it as part of the proposal. If not, well, then we can always ask later, but the guarantee is not there. So I think, and you can always pull it out of the proposal if it doesn't work, if that's where the city wants. But I think the whole idea of we're going to do this, but we're not going to tell the FAA that we want to do this until it isn't a smart move. So, and that's kind of what I heard earlier about the park area, the relocation, that is.
Oh no, I wouldn't imply that we would ever do anything and not tell the FAA. The question was really being raised to look at something in 2 separate pieces. That's all. And what you're proposing with the discussion of an activity viewing area is that maybe we say that the city always wants to maintain an aviation viewing area, regardless of the airport configuration.
Right, have it part of the process and have a location in mind that the FAA can sign off on if they need to.
Charles?
Yeah, my recollection of that discussion was much more along the lines of it was premature to involve the Parks Department in the discussion.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody said anything about the FAA with regard to that specific area.
Yeah, there's no intent to hide anything here or any way whatsoever. I mean, based on this item number 3, we could simply ask Brian to check with Mead and Hunt, and just simply make an inquiry and say, I know it's not part of the master plan, but what would it take for the airport to just develop a new viewing area, given the land in the vicinity of the current main building? And I think that would be a fair thing to investigate in parallel to the current process. I think as Rich is asking, is that if we can't have one, we can't have the other. I just would feel at this point to put some kind of motion like that before this body, or some kind of statement like that before this body, just would be way too early to start going down that type of a road. Because Capital Flight walked away tonight without an answer from us. So Brian, do you need any? This is the direction fine from us, just to
Yeah,
investigate.
to investigate with Mean Hunt, I think that's sufficient.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other thoughts or input? I think it should be a requirement that there should be a speaker out there with a CTAF running. No, that's a really good idea. I mean, that really is. I mean, those are the kinds of things that people really like. Maybe I'm reporting
Yeah.
the AWAS not every 3 minutes, but once every half hour. Okay. All right. Getting
I
late.
was
I'm
gonna say,
sorry. I just
that's okay. I was going to say, if I could make a motion, I want to make a motion to look into both of those things. I
Oh,
think that would,
you mean right now? Have a speaker
like
put
right
out there?
now. All the rest of this is going to take time. Like, let's listen.
Oh, you want a speaker out there right now? Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, using enterprise
All right, maybe
funds
I'm a little enthusiastic about that, but like that's something that we can certainly do and add and to the enjoyment of the people that are already taking advantage of this area. So
well, my electrical IT wiring background is already kicking in because I've done wiring and stuff, and I'm thinking, yeah, we could, yeah, okay,
okay.
all right, great. Item number on to discussion. Item number 4: discussion on scope of hangar economic analysis. And Brian, you have some preliminary, just some information for us to pass on or to start thinking about.
Yeah, so based upon previous conversations, I had asked Mean Hunt just to give us a first blush at what they would be thinking about in terms of how to scope the study. I provided their comments back to you, excuse me, in a memo that's in the packet. Their initial thought is that a couple of the alternatives that were in the master plan would not be feasible at this time. They're looking mainly at alternative 1B, and they did have some follow-up questions in terms of the type of hangar that we would be interested in, that they can use as part of their evaluation. And then is a question about owning, building, leasing the hangars, again, would be another information piece for them to help kind of scope this study.
Yeah, Jack, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't know if you had any other prefacing or staging comments there.
No, I did not.
A number of thoughts on this proposal. I think this is the single biggest need not single biggest, this is one of the biggest needs we continue to hear from airport users and prospective users. I think this should be something we as a body should be bullish about and promote. In terms of the design, I think the 100 by 100 hangars for all of those is not appropriate. I think we should have a series of bank of hangars for smaller single users, so single airplane hangars, and I think some portion of it should be reserved for maybe some larger, 100 by 100 or corporate sized hangars. It should be a mix, but frankly, first and foremost need is to house additional aircraft and additional users, additional proponents of the field that would satisfy the needs of the waiting list. I think the 1B proposal, we should proceed with that with all speed.
And I don't have a lot to preface because I have to admit, this is an area that I'm lacking aviation knowledge, understanding. So I appreciate that and ask that.
Maury's the FBO hangar is 100 by 100.
Okay.
Majority of the hangars on like some of the hangars on Echo, the first ones that abut, like the 3 hangars that were kind of originally scoped to be a little more commercial size hangars. Those are larger. I don't think any of them are 100 by 100 though, but they're bigger. I think they're a little bit smaller than that. Then as you go back, like on Echo, the second row of Echo are mostly 60 by 60s. So, 100 by 100 hangar will house, I mean, we all, kind of attended the 100 year celebration. It's a large space. And so it tends to be a commercial space.
Mhm. As Richard, you've had a chance to look at this.
Muted, Rich. Rich, you're muted.
Nope, still muted.
I'm still eating. Okay. Yeah, I agree with Jack. The demand, if we just go for corporate and jets and things, well, that's not meeting the demand. The demand, 95% are going to be a 50 by 50 that puts 2 or 3 hangars in there, or maybe a 60 by 60. We tried to drive demand at one point when we first laid out the hangars, and they put all T hangars in, but each T hangar was exceedingly expensive because it has its own individual bifold door. They discovered that it's much cheaper to do a 50 or a 50 by 60 or something with one door and 2 or 3 airplanes in it. That's really what's driven, I think, the demand. So looking at that, I would concur. Certainly there should be some space set aside for a large corporate user or another FBO. We probably could put 3 on the field if they wanted to set up, but it shouldn't be the primary driver, in my humble opinion.
Okay.
I also, sorry if I could continue just
Yes,
some of the
please.
comments. I agree, with what Rich is saying. I think the majority of the purchasers are going to be single users. I don't think the city needs, in my opinion, I don't think the city needs to own hangars. I don't know what they do with them other than just re-let them out. I don't know if there's an economic advantage associated with that or not, but I would just like you did with the city did with the other hangars, lease the land and let an owner build their own hangar to certain, whatever the specifications are, and preserve the roadways that are identified in the master plan to preserve the potential expansion then on a north-south runway.
I was looking at documents. Whose hand was up first, Cara or Charles?
Kara.
Cara, go ahead.
I was just fumbling to try to find in the packet the 1B. Is it possible to put that option up, or is it on page in our packet to? I just like to see the visual for myself to see what you're referring to. I definitely second everybody's opinion about the need for,
It's tough because it's not really identified as 1B. There's 2 proposals in option 1. One is on the creek bed, along the east-west runway south, and the other one is up by the car dealership in the northeast, and that's 1B.
Is that
on the same page?
They're on the same page, yeah.
Okay, got it. I found it then.
Is that page 113? Am I looking at the right page here?
It's like 120 something. The Middleton logo is there. It is. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the one I'm looking at.
And it's that space by the car dealership is, space we can develop. It's on our property.
Yeah, it's page 112 and 113 of the what was I looking at? Just
Of the packet.
That's it.
Yeah. Yep.
So this doesn't show, sorry, David, I'm still speaking, but
That's all right. Go
this
ahead.
doesn't show the expansion of the north-south runway and what that would look like, and some of the other available land that the master plan kind of diagrammed as potential
Right.
expansion plan, but it continued the road that you see there for the around those hangars in the northeast, and it continued that road up. It bended to the north, and there was the land side for additional hangars up there.
That's the page 116 map.
Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, yes. All right. So,
Sorry, I was just going to comment. I think the reason why we were considered back in reply to something Jack said earlier, I think the reason we were considering city-owned hangars was because of the availability of grant funds for taxiways serving private hangars, if I'm remembering from the packet correctly. So we'd need to figure out how much that would actually cost before making a determination on city or private hangar construction. But I can't imagine it would be cheap based on what we're paying for similar amounts of paving in public works. So
my understanding, the soils are pretty challenged in that area as well.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to do an environmental assessment. And then you assume environmental assessment says, yeah, you can do something there, then that land would have to actually be made habitable through some kind of water management drainage system, right? And
Soil replacement.
soil
And
replacement.
that's all we got. That's the space that's available right now. We're working all of the areas right now are in confined spaces. And that's I that seems legit, and it's in keeping with maybe future aspirations for expansion of the field. I think we should push on this, and try to figure it out. In my opinion.
Yep. I mean, I agree. I really do. I think we have to exhaust all possible avenues until it's absolutely determined that they're um, Rich.
Well, I just wanted to agree with Jack that there is some very challenging soil out there. Early on in the project or in the assessment of the feasibility of it, we should do borings as they did and determine if this is that organic silt that is so horrible to you can't really build on, or if we got lucky and there's some patches of sand over there, as there were in some areas on the airport with the original project. But there is a pond at the base of the hill there that never seems to show up on anyone's on the illustrations, diagrams, the topo map, but there's standing water out there in a certain area. So that's going to make it a challenge as well. But it's the only option we have, as Jack said. So.
Yeah, all right. Option 1A, essentially.
So
So I guess, I mean, at some point, if we wanted to continue to pursue this, we'd have to start spending real money is the problem.
yeah.
Go ahead, Jack.
Sorry, just one last thing. I don't know if Mead and Hunt could opine on, maybe not the entire stretch of the 1A spot, but would it be feasible to use half of that space and redivert part of the creek, or is one half or the other of it better, rather than the whole thing, to still get some additional capacity added to the field? I don't know the answer to that.
Brian, can I, ask me and Hunt some more of these questions? Challenges are enormous. Rich?
It might be useful to go back on the costs of when we repurposed the east area, where now Capital Flight and Dr. Lemon and various other people have it was prepared for using TIF funds. They prepared that. That's very good soil there for air graphics. And then they backed out of the lease. And then there was an additional cost. If we wanted to get an idea of what it, at the minimum, it's going to cost to do something like that, we could look at the entire project, how much it costs to develop those, is it 4 or 5 hangars over there, 4 hangars. Then we'll have a better feel for what things are going to cost, because it'll cost a lot more now, being as it's much later, but also much worse soil.
Mhm. Brian, was TIF money used in that? How was that funded initially?
I don't know that. That predates my time here. I'm not
Mhm.
sure.
I'm pretty sure that the initial money to do the for air graphics was TIF, and as was a lot of the airport. And then afterwards, it came out of a non-lapsing fund with maybe some state and federal funds coming toward it. But anyway, that's my understanding or remembering, and so.
Okay. Brian, have we given you a little bit of information to look into?
Yeah, so you've given me some
Oh,
additional questions
Jack.
to ask.
Okay. Jack has his hand up some more. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, Brian. I think this is tangential, and I guess the question is where, when we would discuss it. It's related to the now north-south runway. And can we propose, or as a group, start asking the city to look into land acquisition north of the runway? And then I also want to discuss the RPZ on the existing one when we get the chance. That's probably, we can do that in the budget.
Just trying to understand your questions here.
Two questions. I would like to figure out how do we direct the city to start having conversations with existing landowners north of the field.
Okay.
And two,
We'd have to add that to a future agenda item. It's not an item that we can discuss tonight.
okay.
Sure. So, I mean, yeah. So, if you have a like that kind of specific future agenda item, then feel free to send me Brian or me an email.
Okay.
I guess because in respect to this agenda item, that's not a discussion item, but I understand what you're saying because you're thinking of future hangar expansion.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where this fit. I understand it didn't fit in here, but you answered the question. We need to defer to
Sure.
a formal agenda item. The other one, though, will come up in our I'll reserve it for the
Yeah.
budget discussion.
Okay. And again, Brian can bring this back to the next meeting. And if we want, we can move it up higher on the agenda just to give it some more time. Charles.
Yeah, I mean, I'd feel pretty comfortable moving forward with 1B that Mead and Hunt recommends. When we initially decided to do this study, we were hoping to have it started by the end of the year, is my recollection. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about that. So I don't see too much to be gained from discussing the possible options further. Just it's time to make a decision. We have enough information to make a decision for scoping the study. And so let's just move forward.
Development, build alternate area 1B from the master plan. Okay. Brian, do you want a motion from us on that or just?
Yeah, I mean, the motion could be to direct staff to continue to work with Mead and Hunt on further examining alternative 1B and
Okay.
work with Mead and Hunt on the follow-up questions raised this evening.
Okay. Brian has stated that language. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second? Oh,
A second.
Ryan. Okay. And Ryan, any discussion? You have your hand up. And then we'll vote on it.
Yeah, sorry, just to back up, do we actually have a definition of what 1B is?
Yes.
I
I'll
see.
verify with Mead and Hunt, but it's going to be the eastern parcel.
Okay, the one just over by Lexus.
Yeah.
So that's what we're calling 1B. Because I don't, in this packet, I don't think that's specifically
It's
spelled.
it's not labeled that way. That's just the way that Mead and Hunt labeled it in their communications back on our request for scoping, but I'll verify that with them. But my understanding that when we're referring to 1B, we're referring to the eastern edge.
Okay, understood. Sorry.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks. Discussion on the airport policy for using the airport as a community space, community events. And this was brought to us by Charles Meyer.
So we're in the third hour of this meeting.
God, okay.
Let's just defer this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Charles,
and
it's gotta be put farther up on the agenda, okay?
Well, I don't know that would have mattered one way or the other. But just real quick before you move it off, and I think it's fine to defer it, I'll just give you a quick overview. I have reached out to BOA if they have other examples of other communities that have policies. They don't have anything really in their portfolio or library, if you will. I thought I saw some language for General Mitchell Airport in Milwaukee. I've been looking at it, can't go back and find it. Whatever it said was like a sentence or two that didn't provide a lot of guidance. There wasn't like a separate policy document on it. The only thing that the BOA said, so they don't have any example policies, but generally speaking, airport facilities such as conference rooms should be prioritized for aeronautical use, provided aeronautical use takes precedent. Some non-aeronautical use is acceptable. However, grant assurances also require, fair market compensation for any non-aeronautical use. So again, we'd have to kind of dive into that more in terms of, I think some of the nonprofit stuff that's going on is aeronautical related. It would be a question of if we were going to allow any sort of rental of those rooms for non-aeronautical use, then we'd have to figure out, what the fair market value is for rental of that space. But I can try to do some more work on that. Not going to guarantee that that'll be ready for our next meeting, but I'll continue to work on that.
Oh, well, thank you. So then really, we've had an update on item number 5 and appreciate that information. So we'll take that information and continue to review it at the next meeting, if that's okay with you, Charles.
Yeah, that's fine. This is the least time sensitive item.
Okay. Item number 6, I have very little for it other than
sorry, real quick. We had a motion
sorry.
and I need a second to defer to a future meeting.
Oh, yes. Do I have a second to defer item number 5 to
I'll
a future
second.
meeting? Oh, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item number 6, not a lot here to state right now. As you, in the packet, the city of Middleton received a letter from town of Middleton stating their ongoing case regarding leaded aviation fuel, basically pointing out some items for action on our end. And I've reviewed that, and what I really would recommend at this time is Brian touch base with Rich Morey from the FBO operation perspective, gather some additional information, and just kind of come back to us and bring us up to speed on availability, cost, distribution of unleaded fuel, and that's it. Jack?
I'll go further and ask that this group consider asking the city to undertake a little bit of investment in communication and PR campaign to counter some of the and defend the airport. The town's work has given us every piece of evidence we need to rebut every single one of their arguments. Their noise study, they've cherry picked the results associated that they're promoting. The results, if you actually read the report, are much more pro airport than are being communicated to the public about us. The contour studies from the master plan show that they show the noise contours that don't affect the township, and the lead study is again the results that are being communicated are cherry picked, and the actual results are that natural sources have contribute more to natural lead exposures than anything traced back to the airport. So I wish we would be a little more aggressive, like asking the city or asking this group to ask the city to put together some kind of a response or PR campaign to rebut this nonsense and harassment.
Sure, I would say that we can consult with city staff and consult with the city attorney, and we could have a future agenda item discussing call it city response to town of Middleton regarding this misinformation campaign regarding the airport. We can't, get into details of it right now in terms of a discussion item. This has to relate to item number 6. Tara, and then David.
I just want to say I agree wholeheartedly with Jack, and that actually ties in with how I started out this meeting about where there's areas where our communication to the general public about the benefits and also dis and misinformation that's out there is lacking. So absolutely, I think this should be a priority in our appeal to the city and creating a creative way to get that information out there repetitively.
Sure. So we can have a future item to discuss our communications regarding these environmental issues. David Schwartz.
Yeah, I too wholeheartedly agree with Jack and Carr on this. I'm curious, does the city have any sort of ongoing relationship with public relations people or organizations or anything of that nature?
We don't, and again, to the chair's point, we should not discuss this item further until it's formally on the agenda. We don't have an agreement with the PR firm. We have an internal staff person that assists with communications, but that speaks into it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Are we saying we can't discuss this? This
right.
We're in our agenda packet.
We can discuss unleaded fuel and unleaded our efforts in terms of where we're at with the industry, the getting fuel, access to fuel, changes with fuel. We certainly can discuss that, but I think for us to fold into this a media campaign, I'm concerned about how far we're pushing this agenda item. Matt, you're here, you can chime in.
Yeah, I probably can't go into a lot more detail. I mean, we did include this town of Middleton's letter in the packet in relation to this. So, I mean, I don't think bringing up the topic is too far out of bounds, but yeah, discussing the detail of what a campaign would look like and everything. I think we've probably exhausted the limits of this at this point, but I think both Brian and I have heard the interest in it, and we can certainly bring it back as another agenda item at a later date when we might be able to speak to it a little bit more deeply.
And I'm just concerned as a body that we if we go out too far outside of this, we're going to simply get more communications from the town on this. I just don't want us to say anything that is I appreciate everybody's comments on it, though. And understand the urgency to it. So, Brian, you will have a conversation. You will discuss with Rich Morey, address and get this body some answers regarding fuel availability, fuel distribution, fuel access to our airport for the next meeting. And
again, I'll try. Again, I'm not going to promise that all of these items discussed tonight will be back on the next agenda, but I'll try my best.
Okay. Alrighty, review and acceptance of the airport financials. I'll note. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. So I did update the packet with the financials for the month of October. Again, things are pretty pretty standard. Again, it doesn't change a lot month to month with the financials. I did also receive kind of a year to date on fuel sales. That's a separate sheet that's in the packet. You'd asked for that at a previous meeting to understand the fuel flowage. So that's included in the financials as well as a separate sheet. And we'll work to continue to have that information at future meetings as well.
Yeah, and I would add the commission, the future financials will have in it a little more detail. I believe it'll, I guess, show a $0 item for fees not collected and not charged to the FBO. And there will be another line item breaking out the fees that we're dealing with right now in, I guess, call it paying for a navigation easement. That sound about right, Brian?
It does, and I have to go back and get the exact verbiage from the finance committee on what they want. So I'll work on that as well.
No. So you're not going to see any, obviously, change to the airport bottom line, just more space. Who had their hand up first, Rich or Jack? Jack did. Go ahead, Jack.
No, I think Richard.
Oh, Rich, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to point out that we always gave the full flowage at the end of the year with our operating expenses and are happy to continue to do that. We send the monthly, of course, payment into the city just to let everyone know what's going on as well. So we'll just continue to do a summary and send it in as apparently it was requested.
Yeah, and Brian, for the benefit of this body, would you just review the sheet that's in front of us and explain each column briefly?
You're talking this
Yep.
sheet?
No, next one. Yep,
Yeah, so
there we go.
again, this just breaks down the different fuel types that we have available for sale and the flowage fee and gives a total per month. And then it adds up to, year to date total that we've got. So the different types of fuel that are available, the total of that plus the flowage fee that's on top of that.
And Brian, does the city have currently, do we have a current table or policy or in place for established flowage fees, future flowage fees? Rich is saying yes or no.
Yeah.
Are you just moving your head
Yeah,
randomly?
that's included in the contract. It is a discussion point that, with each budget cycle, we can work with the airport, or sorry, with the FBO to determine if that fee needs to be changed. I think we had, with the information we provided at the last meeting, with the statewide average of flowage fees, we're maybe a little bit underneath the average. So that's always something that the Airport Commission and Council can take a look at.
Thank you. Jack?
Thanks. Where is the charge that we're currently paying for the RPC falling outside the airport? I thought that was a line item on prior enterprise fund monthlies.
It's shown in a different fund in the city. So that was one of the requests from the finance committees to have it shown on this document. So we'll make that change to show that.
Okay. And then, sorry, one last follow-up on this. I don't know if this is reasonable or not. And my understanding is that we have requested shortening of that runway and movement of the RPZ within airport property. And we're not able to do so because we're not getting responsiveness from the FAA. And now we have additional business closures due to the current stuff that's happening with our government. What, from a legal and liability perspective, I guess, why can't we just do that? Move it onto the property, no tam
Because
it out.
we've asked that specific question of the FAA. We asked, could you just NOTAM close the airport? That does not follow their procedures for formally removing or relocating an RPZ. You must submit through the BOA, through the FAA's database system, or however it's set up, and the FAA has to approve a removal of an RPZ triangle through the ALP process. There is no other administrative means or any other way other than their process that we are currently going through to get the RPZ removed. We asked 6 different scenarios of like, how could we do this, and each time, they said no. The only way that you can formally remove the triangle off the map, if you will, is to go through this ALP approval process.
I'm sorry, who's they?
The FAA, the Chicago office of the FAA.
And they're unable to respond, and we're suffering economic damage because of their non-response. We can NOTAM it out. I don't know if we have the ability. A lot of ATISs have the ability to put it on your weather, your ATIS. That is a notice that the runway's been shortened, and we're going to close it in a month or so here anyway. It just seems like we'll take I don't know what the liability is, but take the foul. But you guys aren't responding. This is causing us serious economic damage. We shortened it, and we did everything. We can do what the FAA does when they change common traffic advisory frequency. Tell everybody, in the state or in the region, send out a memo that, hey, we're shortening our runway, our grass runway, by such and such. Put it on the ATIS. It's not going to be on the FAA maps because we can't get it on the FAA maps because we're not getting response, but it's costing us, bleeding the fund.
I don't disagree with you, but my understanding that even if we did that, the crux of the issue with the payments is still it being on the map, and until the FAA maps are changed, it still exists whether it's actively used because the runway is shortened or closed. From their perspective, it doesn't matter, and the RPZ still exists in their space, in their minds.
So the source of the payments are from the FAA?
No, our payments for the navigation easement that we have, that's driven by this RPZ being on that property. And we cannot remove that RPZ until the FAA approves that map amendment. I'm not happy about it either, but we've had this conversation with the FAA for over a year and a half.
Yeah. Over a year.
Matt,
Rich?
can you sue the FAA?
I don't know.
Seriously, I mean, this is.
You can sue anybody, but yeah,
Oh.
no, I don't think we have a meritorious lawsuit. And now, like I said, it's a government shutdown.
Rich, did you have something on that?
Yeah, just for what it's worth, it's NOTAM. The grass runway is NOTAM closed November 1st through, I think we open it May 1st. Not that it matters. But, it is, we can't guarantee its condition once snow potentially flies, so it's NOTAM as closed and people will land on it at their own risk.
Yeah. I mean, this is extremely frustrating. It's Karen?
I just want to say I appreciate Jack's question, because that was my next question to Matt. Is there any compensation for us as possible, given that it falls in their hands? And
the FAA compensate us for our pain and suffering?
Absolutely. In the realm of
That would be
possibility, anything's possible.
that would be fantastic.
Well, shoot for the moon.
Hmm.
I don't know, Matt, those are questions Matt would have to answer. Does the city have any legal options with the FAA or anything we can do in any way whatsoever? And Matt is saying,
None that we've been able to find. I mean, this is strictly within their regulatory authority, so there's this is not a matter of negligence or any like direct legal authority or legal obligation that they have to take this action. This is most likely within, typical governmental immunity. Now, could there be, if they were denying our applications or something based on legal errors and stuff, that's all reviewable. But that's not really what's going on here. This is more just it's taking a long time, but that they don't have a specific timeline that they have to adhere to. And then, now I really don't have any idea what occurs when governments have to make decisions, but they legally aren't even functioning at this point. Whether there's an option because of this that you could go to a court and get some kind of relief. I mean, by the time we figured that out and commenced an action and got that, the government could be open, we could have the decision. But getting compensation for this is almost certainly out of the question.
Yeah, I was being a little bit flip. I'm not proposing this, but I'd love just to understand what's the or what. If we just say lease payments are done, we shortened it, we no-tammed it, we communicated to the entire community, we're done paying. And we shorten the runway. What's the or what? What happens? Like what's the chain of events? They're not gonna
then
sue
we would be in violation with the FAA. That's the
and
problem.
but what does that mean, I guess?
Well, I
mean,
mean, it's tied to our grant assurances, and what they would do, I don't really know, but then that puts us in crossways and with the FAA, and what actions would they take against us? It's hard to know, but being in violation of your grant assurances does not put us in a real, enviable position. Yeah.
I'm not proposing that we do this. I want to
Right, yeah.
understand, what happens here.
Jack, my understanding is they still wouldn't be able to build their building because they wouldn't get the waiver because the RPZ is still there by the FAA's map. So
Sure.
Yeah.
now
It's
the other thing,
gonna take them 6 months to get that in the
Yeah.
ground anyway.
yeah, what has happened in the past that may help is maybe the airport commission and the city should contact our federal representatives and explain the situation. Because occasionally a little bit of oversight from someone in the federal government higher up gets things moving. So
Well,
Rich,
it's my understanding this
go
stuff.
ahead.
It's my understanding that right now it's the government shutdown that's really the impediment here, and
Government's only been shut down for 30 days. We've had this proposal in there for how
well,
long?
right, but that's the point is that's where we are now, though, and what the holdup is. Yeah, why it's taken so long before, and would some intervention from a senator or somebody done us some good earlier? Maybe, but
Yeah, I mean, I've asked those questions on multiple occasions of city staff, of the mayor. What is their appetite for us, requesting that type of communication from the city on behalf of the airport. And left it to the mayor and city staff up, up kind of up to this point, and the opinion was don't poke the bear. That doesn't mean that this commission can't tell the city to poke the bear when the bear comes out of hibernation.
What's the worst could happen? Not act? I mean, they're not doing it now.
Well, at our last meeting with the FAA to review this, it was an encouraging meeting. There was no indications from them that they were going to deny the ALP, with the revisions that we obviously made to shorten the runway and move the RPZ. Was call it a technical issue or any problems on their part. They looked at it and they were like, yep, this falls within current regulations and best practice standards, and it's sitting on someplace to get entered into a database after somebody signs off on it. And that was really all of our interpretation of it. It wasn't, oh yeah, no, we have to make more decisions, or no, we're still considering it. It was encouraging. And then literally 2 weeks later, our government shut down. It's about right for the time frame, right, Brian? So yes, I mean, this financial impact on our enterprise fund is significant, and there isn't anybody on the personnel finance of the city and now the Common Council. Everybody's aware of this. So I guess when the bear comes out of hibernation, I mean, it's within our scope tonight as this is a significant financial discussion. Do we want to direct the city to take a more aggressive approach in communicating our concerns to our elected representatives? I don't know how you feel about that.
Is that maybe worth an agenda item in December if the government is back up and running? Could that be something that we discuss then to see if that's worth?
Well, we could leave it at the
I mean,
city's
please understand that
discretion.
please understand that the
Okay.
second we get word that the FAA is back in line, there will be communication sent to them to say, here's where we left things, what's the status, and what's the timeline for completing it. That'll be done regardless of whatever discussion that the airport commission wants to have about this. But if we want to talk about it again in December, we can. But know that has always and will be the plan.
Yep.
Okay, that sounds
Yeah.
good to me.
Yeah, I mean, I want to assure you that the city being Brian, has been in routine contact with the FAA. I mean, routinely calling them. I because I've been routinely asking Brian about it. So, the question is, okay, the government opens up. Brian sends them an email and says, hey, where is this? Do we say tonight, okay, Brian, if you haven't heard from them within 14 days, contact Senator Baldwin's office? I mean, is that what we want to do? Or as Lindsay recommends, wait till December?
Yeah, I wasn't trying to
Charles?
push for a motion, anything
No.
specific. I was just
Well, I appreciate that. It's just that, that's our job, to be an advisory to the city, so we can push for things or ask for things or recommend things. Charles?
Let's just pick this back up in December.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I appreciate it. Everybody, what is it? Airing of the grievances. And I think that message has been received loud and clear. I just wish we could do more. Do we have any other positive financial discussions? Probably not. Okay, everybody. Well, I know this was a really long meeting, and that's because we're making up for all the other times that we simply don't have airport commission meetings throughout the summer. And if that's all it is, Brian has some future agenda items, and Brian doesn't need any motion for us on the finances. So with that, we can stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.